All right, we're live now. Now we're looking at each other. You can look at the camera anywhere we look.
I can look
We're live now. We're ready to go. Now people are watching us, Mike.
Okay.
So welcome, everyone. Welcome to episode 84. I'll start off with the introduction. Everybody gets an introduction. So tonight I'm honored to sit down with retired U.S. Navy Master Chief Mike Nicosia, a man whose life has been defined by resilience, service, and purpose beyond the uniform. Mike grew up in Carson City, Nevada, and went on to earn his degree from Western State College in Colorado before answering the call to service. In 1995, he enlisted in the U.S. Navy, beginning what would become a 20-year career in the Naval Special Warfare. Early in his career, Mike earned his place in the Special Operations community by completing one of the toughest pipelines in the military. From there, he spent 2 decades with East Coast SEAL teams deploying throughout South America, Iraq, Afghanistan, and Northeast Africa, rising to the rank of Master Chief. After retiring from active duty in 2015, Mike continued his pursuit of growth and service, earning an MBA in entrepreneurship, serving as a military liaison in Congress, and later co-founding On Your Sixth Bourbon, which I hope we get to talk a lot about. It's a veteran-owned brand dedicated and created to honoring those who serve. Today, Mike lives in Virginia Beach with his family. His passions include fitness, cooking, new Mexican dishes. We got to talk about that.
Yeah, you've added some things since we last talked.
Yeah. Exploring craft breweries and spending time with his friends and loved ones. Tonight, we'll talk about his journeys, his lessons, resilience, and how purpose continues long after the uniform comes off. Please welcome me and join and episode.
You've already
welcoming. What's that?
You've already messed this up.
Yeah, I did. It's okay. Let's not really worry about it. Welcome, former retired Master Chief Mike Nicosia to the Ports of Patriots. So glad to have you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna correct first. I didn't answer the call to service. We'll get into why I joined the Navy in this.
Awesome. That's cool.
I answered a call, but it wasn't that call.
Hey, we'll get more details. I mean, that's the good part about putting it together there. So we'll do it. So we're going to start off with a non-Navy SEAL quote as we talked about. So this is from Mahatma Gandhi, which I think is always has some great things to say. It says, the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. I think we'll be able to talk about that with you and where you're at now in your life.
That's a good one. I like
it.
Yeah.
You want to talk about why you didn't want Navy SEAL quote? Waiting.
Well, sure. If that's where you want to start, I can start there. And it really is pretty simple. It's a team, right? And it's not me as an individual. I'm not anything overly important or special or talented or not talented. In a group like that, you have the benefit of those in front, behind you, left and right of you, as well as all the support services that go around it. And so I'm very aware that without that team and those support services around me, I'm just another guy walking the street. So I don't have anything. It's not worth bragging about.
Yeah,
as an individual.
Sure, yeah, that's one of the things I've been looking for the conversation, because it's just a different look on it than you hear a lot of stuff. And what we were together last night, which was really cool. Love listening to you talk to people. Nothing. But what you're doing now, which was awesome. You know what I mean? And we'll talk about that more. It was awesome.
It's
you
important.
Talk about how service it is, and some key things that you talked about before about who's taking care of your kids and your family and all that kind of stuff. And that's just an awesome thing I hope we get into. So
yeah,
let's talk about growing up.
So I grew up in the small town, Carson City, Nevada. It's at the time a real small town. You knew everybody knew you. Graduated high school there, really kind of didn't know there was any other option other than grow up and go to college. So I was interested. I was wrestling in high school, played football in high school, and wanted to continue wrestling. And just kind of that's where my passion and drive was at the time. So shopped around, looked for some places to go, and ended up in Western State College in Gunnison, Colorado. And so, spent my four years there. Wanted to go there and go skiing, but that wasn't a part of the gig if you're on the athletics. So spent my 4 years wrestling, and it came to an end, and kind of got to the third year there, and they came to me and said, hey, you've taken like almost every class we have that really isn't geared towards a degree. So you've got to do something. And I said, what gets me out of here next year? And they said, yeah, if you kind of move into, sociology, we'll get you out of here next year. And so knowing that money was running out and your time was running out, I said, sign me up. And so kind of geared into that and graduated. And as kind of the graduating time came around, I really didn't have a job that I was interested in, didn't know where I was going to go to work, didn't really want to go to work. Still had that drive to compete and wrestle. And I had somebody on the team had said, hey, the military's got a wrestling team. And so I just drove my ass down to the recruiters and thought I was smarter than everybody else because I was a college graduate and didn't think they could get one over on me. And they offered the world, and we can make you this, a pilot, a tank driver, you can be a nuclear guy. You can do, and nothing was interesting to me. I mean, there was nothing that, when you said answer the call to service, I didn't join out of some, burning desire for patriotism or my country or because I had a family lineage in it or anything like that. It was just, I was looking for something else to do. I was kind of rudderless. And so they didn't say anything about wrestling. They didn't say anything about athletics. So I came back and continued, I still hadn't graduated. I had a couple months left. And so I just came back and continued kind of mulling over what I was going to do. And then I got a call from the Navy guy and he said, "Hey, come down here. I think we got something that's probably interesting for you to look at. And it'll put you in some pretty good shape to wrestle." So I went down and sat there. They put on a VHS tape and I'm watching Jesse Ventura and his machine gun in the jungle. And I thought, man, I'm watching Predator right now. Why am I had no idea that, he came from that community and was part of that. And so they, moved on and they're jumping out of planes and they're blowing things up and they're, running around the jungles of Vietnam. So I said, that will get me to the wrestling team. He said, it'll put you in great shape for it. So I said, well, then sign me up, and signed up and kind of called home, and my parents were a little bit shocked, to say the least. And so
you said last night your dad was not very happy.
Well, he wasn't unhappy because I joined. He was sort of like, you spent 4 years in college to go enlist in the military.
Let's talk about that before we keep going, because we're the same time frame we're at. I graduated in 94, graduated in 95, same time frame. But that was that pressure from our generation, was like, you're going to college, right?
Yeah.
If you were going to be successful, you're going to college, right? Because and if you didn't, if the kids were going into trade schools, whatever.
That's just what it was.
Yeah,
you grew up and went to school. And so
I
all my friends were doing it. Most of them kind of migrated up to the we've got a great college just north of us, UNR, or they went down to UNLV in Vegas. And I really didn't want to stick around Carson City. It was a small town. Most of my friends in my circle wanted to kind of get out there for a while. And so, I didn't really know there was another option. And, two loving, hardworking parents, and that's just what you did. You got up and you just went to school. And
I think a lot of it too is like for like, both of my parents were high school graduates. So I think it was the way of like almost like bettering, your family, moving up maybe or whatever, or making it better. And it was a lot of pressure,
Sure.
I mean? You don't think about it. I was the first person in my family to graduate from college. So there's that added pressure. But when I look back at it, there was a part of me that like really wanted to do it. But a part of me was like, this I'd rather be, doing something else,
Yeah. I did not do it out of a love to graduate or college. I did it because I had an opportunity to continue wrestling. And I thought it'd be fun. Yeah.
And a lot of mine too is like, when I look at it, but what motivated me through, like you had that, the sports, I played sports as well. But the other thing too is, I wanted to get commissioned, what I mean?
Yeah.
But so there's a pressure, but a lot of the pressure came from I'm putting money into this. My family's, helping out financially.
Yeah.
If I fuck this up,
same thing, really, right? I wasn't about to call home and tell my parents I wasted their money, right?
Yeah. I mean,
so
it's just, and it's an interesting thing when I always talk about my boys, because that's the thing, they have skin in the game with school, and I think that's an important thing, because if you don't, I feel like it's dangerous in 1990. It's dangerous in 2025 to go to school if you don't have your head on right.
Yeah, so it's much harder today than it is when we were around. That's for sure. I mean, the pressures and just to even get accepted, right? I don't know that I'd get accepted to the school I applied to, let alone any of the others. And you just see what these kids are doing these days, and I'm literally amazed at some of the college applications that you see go through.
You're like, they would never let us in.
Yeah, no, they would not.
Which is fine. No. Sorry, I didn't mean to digress there, but
no.
So with that, now back to the grown up. So nobody in the family you mentioned nobody, not many people in the military. Nobody.
No military service. I had an uncle that did a couple years, and I can't even remember why he joined, but he did a couple years, and then he's an artist in San Francisco. So. To speak of, no military background in my family or anything like that. It just, small town Carson City. There wasn't much around. Right. Yeah.
So they trick you into join the Navy with the intention that you're going to wrestle.
I didn't think it was a trick. So then, I ended up going to boot camp, and then I ended up in San Diego and going through the selection course there, and I showed up there, and it was, I mean, obviously everybody knows what it was. It's rough, and you make it through there. But, I got there and then checked into the first command here in Virginia Beach, and went into the admin office and asked them if I could, get a piece of paper and get a chit to go apply to the wrestling team. And I just saw kind of a head look out from the back office, and And he said, "What did you just say?" And I said, come with me, and I want to introduce you to somebody. And we went and headed over to the XO's office, and the XO took me to the CMC's office. And I'd been in, boot camp in the military long enough to know who these people were at this point. But I was, and it's not going to be a shock to those. And I was getting a bit frustrated because, these people had said, if you do this, then we can do that. And so finally, the master chief there that had said, "Hey, I want you to kind of look out the front door and go jump in the water and give me a handful of sand off the bottom, bring it to me." And so I came back and, he started to take my uniform off, and the guy said, "He didn't tell you to take your uniform off." And I came back, and so one thing led to another. I ended up in Panama and never saw wrestle mat again. And 20 years later, retired. So, yeah.
So I did have one question about that. So, you shared that last night, just a question on mind. So, you obviously in your mind, you thought you're just, checking the box. You were going to go get to do what you wanted to do. When did you start seeing yourself in that community? How quick did you say, okay, this isn't happening? When did you start saying, okay, now I'm okay with the decision. I'm part of that community.
I'm fairly dense, but I wasn't that dense, right? I knew pretty quick once I was in Panama that wrestling was no longer in my future. So, I think maybe for the first 4 or 5 years, I kept saying, as soon as I can get out of here, I'm out of here. It was not what I was told. I think a lot of that was probably my own,
naivety.
And ego that like, hey, you didn't do what you said I would do, and I did what I said I would do. So screw you. I'm going to move on and do something else. But,
I love it.
you quickly find that you fall in with a team, and it's not unlike an athletic team or anything else. And you find your niche, and I really, really enjoy the people around me. Everybody was highly driven. Everybody wanted to be there. There was nobody that was kind of loafing along. And, though things weren't what I was told they would be, and I didn't do it because that was my interest. I did it because I was trying to get somewhere else. I'd say it probably took 4 or 5 years to weed that something else out and replace it with what were we doing here. And, it was pre 9/11. So there wasn't a whole lot of other things except training and traveling around the world going on. And then, the more places you see, the more exposure you get to other cultures and other places and other things, you kind of realize that this is pretty cool. And so, it was just, probably didn't really truly understand the value of service or what it meant to serve, for years. It's not selfishness. It was just wasn't what I was told and the expectations I had for myself or anything else. And so, that slowly was replaced by the importance of what you're doing and what it means. And, certainly you see how others live, and you experience other cultures, and you experience other countries, and you experience those things that you realize that, what we have is special in this country. I mean, it really is. And, the amount of people that are protecting it is very, very small. And that's, through the Bourbon company, that's what you kind of realize. We started really digging into it, and you realize how small that circle is of people that are serving this country. And, you look at traditional service roles, and then, you kind of expand that out to other people that truly are serving their communities. And that number is still small. And when I say small, less than 2% of the country. And not to say that everything else isn't important, but, to continue to protect the ideals and the way of life that we have, that's a big burden for a small group of people.
Yeah. A big burden that's cost a lot of people a lot of things,
Yes, it has.
It's cost some everything and other people a lot. So, but I want to go back to this. I love that you're honest about that, because a lot of people have, I have the two stories of when I joined the military. I have the patriotic call to service. The other one, when I get rid of the story, is to just get away from where I was living.
Sure.
Amen. And honestly, to do better than my dad did.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't want to hear that. That's a hard thing to do. But there was a part of me, I would say that, the call to service. I know you knew you were joining the military. So I mean, there's a little bit part of that.
Well, but I didn't know what it means. But I didn't recognize it, right? You didn't recognize it, and you knew. I grew up watching the service to the community that my parents gave, which wasn't military service, but the things that my mom and dad did for my friends and neighbors in our community, and the volunteering things they did, and the after hours things that they did, and kind of help they gave to other families and other people gave to us when we needed it. And so, there was a call to service, but I didn't recognize it. I didn't know what it was. That's a good point,
because I'm glad you brought that, because when you look at it, it kind of is that way, because, when we were starting off, both of us joined around the same time. So it really wasn't a lot going on.
Right.
And you were doing this kind of stuff. So really, we were kind of, doing what we wanted to do a little bit. You know what I mean? It was kind of, we kind of could control, you could control what you were doing too. Right.
And it's not a bad thing. It wasn't a bad thing. I still, if there was nothing going on and you didn't know what you wanted to do in life, there's nothing wrong with serving other people, serving a country, serving a cause bigger than yourself. Post 9/11, those kids that serve and, young men and women that serve and signed up post 9/11, there's no doubt why they signed up. There is no doubt why they signed up. They didn't sign up to go and, train other countries and sit around. They knew what they were getting into. So huge difference between you and I and the people that are signing up post 9/11. So, it was a simple fact that probably being a young kid, self-absorbed in myself and I was brought up right. I was brought up well. And so, there was a call to service, but I didn't recognize what it was or necessarily understand that draw or attraction to it.
Yeah, because I'm glad I asked that question, how you answered it, because it's like really strange. Because when I think about it too, it's like it wasn't right away that you kind of click what you signed yourself up for and what you're doing. It's like, it's a job, right? Yeah. Before it was like, it kind of was just a job you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, and then things did change, and that's when a lot of the sacrifices started happening, where you're like, holy cow, And so, even though we joined pre-up, a lot of us stayed into it. So that's a big deal too. I think that was a hard transition for us as well.
Right.
To go from,
and I've said that same statement, and a lot of us have. I didn't sign up for this. You said it pre 9/11, you said it post 9/11. It means something totally different.
Yeah, exactly.
It means something totally different. I didn't sign up for this.
Here, guys.
Yeah, I didn't sign up for this. Pre 9/11 means something totally different than not post 9/11.
When you told me that story last night, I was just laughing, because it was like, I just would have wished that's when you wish there was cameras to watch the face of whether they think you're completely fucking with them or that you were, when they realized you were serious. It was like, oh my God, this is.
Believe me, there was some wide eyes from both sides that when I kept telling that story, and
So last question I have about that, I think this. So you grew up, playing a lot of sports. What do you think prepared you to get thrown into that rule? I know you were. Were you truly motivated to get through that, to go play, to go wrestle again, or what do you think were the driving factors for you to have the resilience, the dedication to make it through?
I'd be an idiot if I told you I knew. I think it's a combination of the way I was raised and the way I grew up. My parents, hardworking people, and wrestling certain didn't hurt. I remember calling my mom saying, "Man, they feed me 4 times a day here. There's no way I'm quitting this thing." And but also I was not about to call my dad and tell him that I'd quit. There was it just wasn't going to happen. Like I just was not going to do that. I just couldn't imagine a time where I would call my family and say I quit. If I didn't want to do it, I was going to finish it and go do something else, but I wasn't, and that comes from my parents. You finish what you start and you move on. So I don't think there's any one thing that prepared me for it. I don't think, something that you don't know what you're getting into, can you really be, if you know what you're getting into, you can prepare for it. Right. If you don't know what you're getting into, then I don't know how you prepare for something that you don't know is coming. Mm-hmm. So I think you just kind of rely on how you were raised and how you're brought up and the values and things that are important to you. And then it's just personal determination.
You think it's harder now knowing, like, these guys knowing because it's pretty out there, pretty much like what it looks like compared to when you went in 95. Is it?
I think it's harder now. It's harder now. It was harder this year than it was last year. It's harder as technology and things move along, then they can find ways to make it harder and easier on them and harder on you. Right. If they want to go to home at 5 o'clock at night, there's only so many things they can do until 5, but if they can compress a lot of pain and struggle and things in that hour, then they've got more time and more things at their disposal. And plus they know medically and everything else, they have a far better picture of where you as an individual are than they did in 1995. Yeah. So, you look at, hey, are these guys too hot? Are they too cold? Are we stressing them too much? Are they running too far? Are they swimming too far? It's a guesstimate, as the further in time you go back, it's a bigger guesstimate. Now there's no doubt, right? Yeah. They know exactly what your core temperature is. They know exactly all those things. So I have no doubt it's harder now than it was. They're responsible for more. There's more technology. There's more, when we came in, it was like, here's your gun, just shut up and march. I mean, now it's, hey, here's your drone, here's your gun, here's this, here's your that, here's your radio, here's your ISR, here's your night vision, here's all these things. So I have no doubt. And, again, that's just my personal opinion. I'm far removed from it. I've been retired for 10 years. I don't know what's going on right now.
Yeah, just a conversation.
Yeah.
So, big things you want to talk about transition. So, I'm okay with, if there's anything you want to talk about your 20 years, but when do you think you started, a lot for me, when I was getting the transition, ready to transition out of the Army, I don't think I had the best plan. So when did you, knowing that you're going to do 20 years, when did you start prepping your transition, or did you not prep, or what was the mindset rolling into retiring?
I did. I knew, there's probably like everybody there, when you're done. And so I knew that 20 was it for me. And there were some things that if I could have done them, I would have stayed. But they weren't offered. It wasn't an opportunity. It wasn't in front of me. So I made the choice to move on and retire. And it is, as we talked about last night, it's part of my kind of struggles with the whole way that transition is approached and transitions is looked at, and the way they treat veterans, and the way the DOD handles it, and the way the veteran handles it is, as I know it and as I understand it. And again, it's my personal opinion that it is the only thing you do that you can get paid for. It's not a job, but it's a job. So it's the only job I know that starts on a date, ends on a date. You're in control of both of those. So when a veteran said, I can't find a job, well, I struggle with that concept, because when you're getting out. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't quit a job unless I knew where I was going and had another job. So, if you make the decision to leave, but that's not the complete story, because the DOD has an obligation in there as well.
Well, let's talk about that, the personal part of it, because I think just my conversation getting to know the past couple of days and some phone calls, I don't think you have as your purpose and your as being, a SEAL. That's not your identity. No. Right. So I think that ties into when I've seen people that are looking for jobs when they get out, the military has become their purpose, their identity. They're tied to what they were doing in the military, whether it was, what you were doing, what other people were doing. They just tied into it, and they're like, this is who I am. I'm an infantry officer. I'm a cook. I'm a truck driver. So I think there's that, that is a hard thing to break after especially, the longer you get in the career, like 20 years, 25 years. I did 11, so I was able to kind of balance out, I don't think I got the full calls into me, you know what I mean?
Sure.
But when I got out as an officer, all they tell you is that you can be a leader.
Right. But again, they where I think that conversation is muddied is, I just came through the airport and said, vet ticks, get free veterans, get tickets to concerts. You can go to these baseball games. You can go to all these things. There's a lot of things that come with being an active duty service member. And people think you're our country's heroes. These are the 1.5% that are serving. And, in the military, it's less than 1% of the country that's serving the military. So yeah, they're our heroes, and they're protecting our freedoms. And then you get out and it's like, okay, now I'm the guy that, the same as the guy down the street, walking down the street next to me. And that may be something that a lot of people struggle with. I don't, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychologist. I don't claim to know what people struggle with as an individual, but I think for me personally, if when you're getting out, you should prepare to get out. Transition's a verb. You need to then move. And, as we talked about last night, it's, you can't then expect to get paid the same, do the same. The job isn't the same. It's not, it's just not a job. Service can be a career. You can make a career out of service, but it's service. And when the service is done, you need to go do something else. And so, I think if you are tied up and wrapped up in that identity, and again, my opinion is you got to move on. I mean, if you want to move on and you want to do something else, you want to own a business, you want to start a business, you want to work for somebody, you want to do whatever you want to do, you have to do that. You can't then say, oh, well, I'm 82nd Airborne, or I'm, a Ranger, or I'm a SEAL, or you can't do those things. And I'm not. I'm retired. I was, and I did it, and it's over. I'm no longer that guy. I'm a veteran, and that's where I just think you just move on. You're a veteran, and leave it at that.
So talk about you then. What did you do to prepare then? Let's get back to you individually at the transition as you saw it was coming.
I knew it was going to come, and so I reached out to my network and my friends and my family, and said, "Hey, I'm done. I need to find a job." As we talked about, I originally had wanted to leave Virginia Beach because I wanted to transition. I wanted to break away from it. I didn't want to be known as that guy walking around town that just, if you're going to move on, I wanted to move on. And, as I said, my kids kind of said, hey, we grew up here. This is home. And, and it was just, that was the conversation. It's like, hey, okay, I'm not going to uproot everybody because I want to do something. And And so I used my network, my friends, my family, my support networks of people to go and find things that I could do, not necessarily that I wanted to do. And, I think when I retired, it was a hard conversation with yourself, right? That what can I do? What am I willing to do? What am I capable of doing? And I kind of just settled on the fact that I knew I wasn't going to land on exactly where I wanted to be. And I had some really smart people that transitioned ahead of me that said, look, you're going to go through 3 to 4 jobs in the first 5 years. It's just going to happen. So accept it. Understand that you just need to get a job. You just need to learn how to work, because working in the civilian community is different than working in the military. And that was hard. We're institutionalized no matter what community you come out of, right? And my experiences are in a very smaller community inside of the military. And so whatever community you come out of, whatever, branch of service you come out of, we're institutionalized to whatever degree, but things are not the same, right? Deadlines aren't the same. Mm-hmm. The way people react to things and answer calls and send emails back, and they're not the same. And so it took a little bit of time. I think for me, probably a good couple years to really kind of settle in and realize that I'm in a little bit more control of my time, but other people aren't going to respond and react the way I'm used to it. And it was frustrating at first. You send a message to somebody, email somebody, a phone call to somebody, you expect that they will call you back, email you back, return to the phone call. And when they don't, and they wait a day or 2 or 3 or 4 days, you kind of like, dude,
this guy's problem.
Yeah, right. And so, that took some time, but I kind of moved in and took a job that probably had no business having, and really don't know that I was qualified to do it. But it was a good lesson for me. I met a lot of great people. It expanded my network outside of the military to kind of network into where I wanted to be. And then realized, having done a few things, in the business side, that I wanted to be in the business community somewhere. And so I had an opportunity to go back to school, and I took it, because if I wanted to be in there, I had to understand it. And I didn't. I was fortunate enough to sit in some, executive level meetings at the first job I had. And it literally was like Charlie Brown speaking. Well, I'm like, what are they talking about? I don't understand what they're talking about. And, and then I kind of realized, well, if you just want to be a monkey in a suit, then you're just going to continue on this pace. So I took the opportunity to go to business school. And I realized there that, if you can think of it, somebody's getting paid to do it. They're either created their own job, or it's a job that is out there. And it kind of just opened my eyes that you could do almost anything and get paid for it if you can get somebody to buy into it and you're passionate about it and there's a need for it. So, that kind of led to an opportunity that kind of came to me to graduate business school. I didn't know what I wanted to do with it. And I got an opportunity to go serve again in Congress as a military liaison, as a staff member to our congressman, who happened to be a friend of mine. And so I took it and kind of just, used it as another stepping stone. It put me back, in Virginia Beach, or kept me in Virginia Beach. And I talked to a good friend of mine, and he said, hey, use it, because it's going to open up all sorts of networks for you that, if you have that experience under your belt. So I did that. And then, I jumped in with my partner at M5 Consulting, and we kind of moved along as a previous business relationship brought an opportunity that we thought would be worth pursuing. And so we kind of set off on that together, and that's kind of where I've been since.
Yeah, I like the transition was great, because that was a great line you said real quick, but it's what you can do, not what you want to do.
Yeah.
And, that was kind of my mind. So when I first got out, as the first job I got offered, I was like, man, I don't see myself doing this. But I can do it. You know what I mean? So I just got to do it. And that I can't lie. I mean, that was a pain. That was not easy.
No.
I mean, it's, and I know you said you just got to do it, but it's hard to do that.
Sure,
you got to, I call it like reinventing yourself. You got to reinvent yourself. But, for me, it's interesting, the personal part was, you got to start, you're right. You got to date, you got to make money. You got to provide for your family. And I think there are some veterans out there like, hey, I don't want to do that. Yeah. I don't want to.
That's right.
And that doesn't work. I mean, you got to do stuff you don't want to do. And especially when it comes to the transition, just seeing where you fit in, because like you said before, another great line was like, the civilian world's completely different, and it does take time to acclimate. And if you don't get in it, you don't dip your toe into it and figure out what you like or what you don't like. It's painful. I mean, and as far as you and as successful you were in the military, when you get there, it's like, I know exactly what you're talking about. All of a sudden you're like, man, I feel like I'm the dumbest person in this room.
Yes.
And then you start getting all this stuff like, I've done this, I've done that. But, the reality is I'm still the dumbest person in this room. And if I don't do something about it, where do I go?
Yeah. And the veterans that kind of want to hold on to that identity, I was this, or I still am kind of that. You can't be 1 foot in and 1 foot out. Right. Yeah. And and the smaller the specialized communities go, as from my personal experience, the less qualified you are to do tangible things on the outside, right? If you're a radioman or, a cryptographer or something like that, that's a skill that translates. Radios are radios. You understand the fundamentals of electronics and things like that. But, you get into some of these smaller communities, it's like, well, what are you going to do that? There just isn't, that skill set isn't out there unless you want to continue to do contracting and things like that. And so, you got to kind of recognize what you can sell to an employer. And then comes a conversation of what are you worth, right? And somebody that does 6-8 years, who's 24, 25, 26 years old, the struggle then becomes, well, I'm working aside 17, 18, 19, 20-year-olds, 21-year-olds that just graduated, and I'm getting paid less than they are. And that's probably hard to swallow. And I understand it's probably hard to swallow, but I think that's part of the onus on DOD and the military branches is you got to be honest with these guys when they're getting out about what are you stepping into? What is your true business value worth as an employee to somebody if you're going to be an employee? And if you're going to start your own business, what does that cost? What is the time of that and effort and what goes into making that happen? And they're not, my experience was you tell them you're done, the lights go out and you're in a room by yourself and they're moving on. And I understand that the military has to move on. That train is leaving the station. And if you choose to stay in the station, either getting out or retiring, then you're in the station by yourself or with everybody else that's leaving. And that is a struggle for sure. You lose your friends, you lose your network, you lose your security blanket, and now you're off on your own.
So what was the hardest part for you? That was one question I was asked later. What was the hardest part about getting out for you? Losing your job, losing your friends, or losing your purpose or identity as a senior Navy enlisted man?
I think the hardest part of it was the lack of structure, right? You knew what you were doing. You got up in the day, you had something that was valuable. You were serving a cause, a purpose, a reason to be there, a reason to get up in the morning, and not having taken on a job that was, my end all be all. This is where I want to be. This is kind of where I fell into. Yeah. You just got up and kind of were like, and it didn't fill your day, and most times the job doesn't, right? You get up and you have a project to work on, you do it a couple hours, and then you get up and you go to the water cooler, you do whatever you do, you go play with your dog or wherever you are. That's not the case when you're, in uniform. It's you're working from, start to finish, and then you get up and do it again the next day. So probably just the lack of purpose for the day. And, but it was also one of the biggest things that was a freedom, right? Is that, okay, now you don't have the monkey on your back where, every minute of your day is somebody will fill it if you don't fill it. So
I love those answers because it kind of rotated for me a little bit depending on the mode. I mean, you definitely, like you said before, the train goes on, that your friends as close as you are, they move around and you lose them. So that was tough. But the purpose was that because you go to doing something that everybody has a common, a common goal, and then you go to work with people and you're like, man, they have a total different thing. You're trying to get promoted. This person just it's 3:00, they're ready to go home. And spend time with their family. I mean, there's just so, and then you start to value. Like I went and was, a maintenance supervisor for a district service manager, and I would think to myself, like, what the fuck am I doing? This isn't important. But looking back on it, I was providing for my family. I was, getting a new skill set that I didn't have before. All these other things that but I just found myself rotating through, those three things. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it just takes time. Like you said before, the military is not going to really help us. They just want to keep you in, and once you're gone, you're gone. That's the institution, not to make them wrong. But, some people get tied up on those, and I don't make them wrong for it. It's just, I think communicating like you're talking and talking to guys like you, talking to people who've been through it. And if someone does talk to you, fucking be honest about it. Like that's the thing too, is a lot of them are like, oh, you're going to be great. You're going to be able to get this job out here. And that's not the way it works. I mean, it's and not to even mention some places you already got a mark on your back being a veteran. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want, I don't talk about that very often, but people are like, they've already pigeonholed you to be a certain type of person. They're looking at for all this kind of stuff. They're pushing your buttons on some things because you do that. And yeah, it's a tough thing, but I did, it's those three things for me, just depending on sometimes
depending on the day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I didn't leave town, right? I stayed there. So my
Yeah.
friends were still there, but that was also the struggle, is that when you're all in the same place doing the same job and you're going to the same place to work, it's easy to grab lunch, or it's easy to go and, hey, we're going to, after PT, let's go grab breakfast, or, let's do whatever on, take Friday, half day on Friday, go play some golf or do whatever. And now those same friends are still in town. They're working, you're not. And it's like, nobody's answering the phone because they're busy. They're gone. They're working. They're, in town, out of town. So I didn't lose my friends, but they weren't as readily available and accessible.
They were there with every day.
And, I did have the added benefit that I'm selectively social. I my friends that know me know I'm not overly social. I enjoy spurts of social activity, and then I go and hide and enjoy my peace and quiet. But depending on the day, it was different.
Yeah. And I think we'll talk more about the purpose part. I think we both have found purpose in different places. It took me a long time to find it. Yeah. My purpose is no longer identified by my job or those things like that. It's just other things that you can find that same purpose in the middle. Because I think for all of us, we eventually have that, right? No matter how you joined, whether you did join patriotically or whether you joined to get out of the situation, whether you joined to wrestle, at a certain point, you're in an organization that has immense purpose. And, pretty much everyone's bought into it, or you're fucking gone pretty much. Right. Yeah. So it took me a long time for me to find what I consider my purpose to be now. Because a lot of it was tied to, title or a job and a profession. And I'm glad I'm through that. So, So you ready to sample your bourbon?
I have sampled it many times.
Ready to talk about it?
I'm happy to talk about it. Love to talk about it.
We'll take a break. We'll get some here. But I have a write-up. Would you like to do the write-up about on your sixth bourbon? You could probably tell the story better than
I can tell the story very well. I know the story very well. It's it really comes out of our Dan and my deep purpose of thanking those people that served us, our families, our communities, while we were not at home and able to do those things that we could have been doing, should have been doing, wanted to be doing. Very specifically for me, thank you. It is, my kids' teachers, right? So I have 3 kids, and you travel all the time. You're gone all the time. I told you that sound.
We hear it again. Sorry.
It's the sound. It's there's so many people doing great things in this country. And as we sat around and talked about this and thought, hey, I've been in business with Dan for a long time before we picked this thing up. And we kind of just said, hey, he'd been doing his things that he was passionate about, giving back and serving and doing those things. And I was doing mine, and some of them overlapped and some of them different. And then this opportunity came to us, and we kind of thought, how do we make the most of this opportunity? And we just came, and it literally became pretty clear pretty quick. There's so many great things going on in this country, and this country is so strong. And day to day, when you walk down the street, people aren't fighting, people aren't arguing, people aren't yelling at each other. And the media wants to tear everybody apart. They want it's ratings sell when there's conflict and volatility. And we thought, let's flip that script and just highlight the great things that are going on in this country. We've been blessed by a lot of people that have served our families and our community, that we wanted to honor and recognize them. And then we realized that when we open that aperture up, and some of those hero stories that are on our webpage, it's amazing what's going on in this country, and it's not recognized enough. Scholarships for veterans, there's a lot of them. We look at it. Where are the scholarships for teachers' kids, policemen's kids, nurses' kids? And I've told this before, I can argue, having spent 20 years in uniform, that a foster parent or a teacher who spends 20 years in their community has a bigger impact in that community than I did in uniform. Yeah. My service was overseas. It was largely unseen. It was largely unheard. It's important. All of our veterans' service is important, but so is the service in our communities. And again, those kids that grow up, they graduate those classrooms, they move on to the next classroom, they have kids of their own, they've learned those principles from their teachers, and they learn how to read, write, and do math. when somebody asks me my personal opinion, who the most important profession in this country is elementary school teachers, because if you don't teach a kid to read, write, and do math, you can't sign a contract, you can't join the military, can't be a lawyer, can't be an astronaut, can't be anything. And, you know, they spend their own money, they buy their classroom lists, they spend time with our kids away from their families and their kids to make sure everything's okay. And so, you know, very, very specifically for me, when we were sitting around talking about this, I said, hey, we're not going to be the judge, jury, and advocate of service because we wore a military uniform. We're going to build a brand around people that serve their communities for any reason, any purpose. I would never want anybody to buy a bottle, buy a drink, or buy a shot because I served or I was a veteran. I want them to buy a drink, buy a bottle, buy a shot for somebody that served them in their community, that had their back. And that's what On Your Six is. It's, you know, it's those that took care of you, those that had your back, you know, raise a glass to them, not to us because we were veterans. You know, our core roots of the brand are founded in service because that's what we did and what we believe in. But there's so many other people doing it in this country and holding this country up and keeping the communities together, that we wanted to honor and recognize them.
Yeah, that's a powerful message. I saw yesterday and how quick that connects people, because yeah, you do talk about, you know, you talk about serving, you know, obviously goes towards, you know, veterans, then quickly goes into law enforcement. But yeah, there is a thing of like nurses, teachers, firefighters, all these other, you know, all these, you know, social workers. I think there's a lot of people that are serving the community but that is, you know, it's almost the same things you talk about, the tiers you're talking about with that you don't like to talk about the community you were in the military. There's some people that say when you start talking about those who serve, who are you talking about, right? Yeah.
I saw it firsthand when I was in the congressional office. People would come in and say, hey, you know, I'm struggling. I'm looking for some help for my kids. And, you know, I was this or I was that, a nurse, a doctor, teacher, you know, Army, Navy, and you start sifting through their situations and trying to find help. And it's bleak, you know, for some of these specialized communities, there's help everywhere. Mm-hmm. But the further you get away from that, and it's like, wow, there's really. And so we just said, look, we're gonna recognize, honor them, and hopefully be able to give back to them and create something that, you know, at least recognizes them for their service to the community if we can't do more. And we're trying to figure out every day how we do more.
And I thought that another things I pulled up often, I didn't realize that it was shaped out like an old school canteen. So It's a great bottle design inspired by a vintage military canteen. It's got a cool look. It's got a really kick-ass cork. And Mike loves the sound, but you can hear it.
You can hear it across the bar.
So it is great. What's also cool is it's got some NFC technology on the front, which is really cool. If you just take your phone and click on it, it'll take you right to the heroes page of On Your Six Bourbon. So really cool. That's a really cool feature. I thought was pretty neat.
Yeah, we've got some pretty smart marketing folks that put this together and continue to innovate this thing every day. And we really didn't recognize how powerful those stories were, you know, and people love talking about their family and their, you know, people that served, and you start having those conversations. It really is fun to sit around and just hear the amazing things that are going on.
Yeah, and when you talk about the service, it's interesting because it's like I was saying earlier, like when you think about the serving, you talk about 1%, but then when you start, you know, talking about those other careers where you serve, you know, not only does the amount of people that did it grow, but also the people that are connected to, my dad was a teacher. Yeah. And you can just see the community grow. And I saw that last night. It was pretty cool to see people talk. You just have a common thing like, I didn't have anybody that served the military. So I really, you know, but shit, my mom was a teacher for 35 years, or my dad was and it just starts bringing that, not only the pool of people, but the people that are committed to supporting and understand, like, oh my gosh, I did, you know, wow. Cause I have it too, that, you know, there's parts of us at any time that I was like, yeah, fuck that. If you didn't serve the military, you know, I went through that phase. Right. Sure. But I would argue that a teacher or a fireman or a nurse, you know, my son's a nurse, they're missing a lot of the same shit we're missing. Yes, they're the ones that are the ones that are out on holidays, that are working on holidays. I mean, people say about teachers, you know, they get the summers off, you know, okay, whatever. But they're the ones that are there. Some of them are there at 5:30 in the morning. they don't get back to 6 because they're volunteering for something. So they're sacrificing.
Their
the same
hearts are
things we
twice as
sacrifice.
big as ours are, and they're working at night to make sure the kids have a great day the next day. They're working in the mornings before school starts to make sure that they get to school okay. They're providing clothes for them because some of the kids don't have clothes. They're providing meals, and it's all out of their own pocket because the schools can't pay for it all. And so, we've done some really cool things. The back to school, happy hours we do are some of the coolest things in the world. We just let teachers come in and have some happy hour, have some drinks, and take some school supplies back. And
teachers can party though.
Teachers can party. They can.
But and then some of the facts about it: distilled in Bardstown. It's 80 proof, 2 years old. It's a mash bill of 72% corn, 18% rye, and 10% malted barley. Available in we think 22 states, right? That's what we're.
It's we're coming up on that. We've got a bunch of states in the queue, so the exact numbers, give or take. We're marked. We're marked. Yeah, give it time, and we'll be in more than that. So. We've got a great team, great group, and they're working hard. And both Dan and I are certainly not afraid to do the work. So we'll be out there. We'll get it.
Yeah, and you can find them. I mean, in Ohio, it's in limited agencies, but you can there's enough of them around here to find it. You can just look in and find the product through HLQ website. But what's exciting for you guys too is you got an 8-year coming out here.
That's the rumor.
February,
that's the rumor. I don't know if that's the date, but it's coming. It'll be coming. We are sponsoring the commissioning of the next aircraft carrier, the JFK CVN 79, and so that just got pushed back a couple years. So I'm hearing through the grapevines that we have something coming out in the future for that. So. We'll see. I'm excited for all that's coming for us. And, right now it's the hard work.
It's funny because I don't like to say I'm a bourbon connoisseur anymore. I never did that, but I've drank a lot of bourbon, and I'm not going to lie. If you go the being a 2-year 80 proof, I'm going to be like, okay,
we get that.
Gonna be good.
Yeah, we get that.
Unbelievable. I mean, especially being a higher corn mash bill. It's really. I was pleasantly surprised how good it is. So really
we just challenge everybody. If you're going to make the comment, then taste it.
Yeah,
if you're going to make the comment, then taste it. If that's where your head's at, then just taste it. And if you don't like it and it's not for you, then we're happy to tell you our story and move on. But we know we've put a good juice in the bottle, and it's a great story, and it resonates with people, and whether you support it because you like the juice, or whether you support it because you support what we're about, we'll take everybody.
And it's matter.
Yeah, I mean it's.
No, but I just want to say it's a good. I mean, all the people out there that are trying, you definitely got to try it. It's great, neat. Set up to some really good cocktails last night. It's just a good product, and I mean, to me, I'm more like, but bourbon is that, right? If you would think about it, it's not even if you talk about Knob Creek, if you talk about all these other brands, a lot of it is the story.
Sure.
So that's what sells a lot of these bottles too, especially as people get to distilleries.
Yeah.
I watched it yesterday. I watched you interact with people at the liquor agency, and then obviously in the bar, and just how people were they're more interested in the story anyways. I mean, and that's
our goal is to make it theirs, not ours.
Exactly.
I want you to walk in and feel like that's your bottle, that's really made for you, and there's story behind it is you, your family, or somebody that served for you, and that's our goal, is to make it yours, not ours. And we really think we've done that. And bourbon's bourbon, right? There's only so many different ways you can make the mash bill and to stay within the confines of bourbon. So they do differ, but the story is, it's a great story. And
I love the proof though, because the other thing too is, you start getting up at some of these proofs, and you're going to take out anybody who just wants to try, I mean, 80 proof is a great entry level. There's very few brands that, that are out at 80 proof.
Yeah.
And,
well, we wanted to make it affordable to those and drinkable to those that we're honoring and serving. I mean, it's if we put something out that's higher proof and more expensive, and then who buys it? Not the people that we're honoring and recognizing through our story. So we wanted to keep it authentic there, and make it drinkable, make it affordable, make you want to take 2 bottles and give one to your buddy and drink the other one at a football game or wherever you are. So we've done that. We think we've done it. We think we're doing it well, and we're going to continue to do it well.
I wish you the best of luck on that. You guys are doing great. I think another part of it is all, or parts of the proceeds go towards the On Your 6 Foundation, right? That supports these things you're talking about.
So
what are some of those things that the foundation supports?
Well, we honor, archive these stories. We go out and we hear these stories, and then the nonprofits that they're affiliated with, the causes they're affiliated with, we return some of those proceeds back to them. We did the Sterling Promise Foundation, which, does colon screenings for veterans and active duty. The Billy Moon Foundation, he was a fireman and, an organ donor. And it was an extremely powerful event we went to. And, you're in the room with other firemen, other people that have his organs, and save their lives and allowed them to continue on with their families. And so, just supporting those things that are important to them, that they're passionate about, and we can get behind. I mean, they're serving their communities and they're doing great things, and they, want to expand their service to their communities, and we want to empower them to do that. And so, if we can sponsor some events or have some events or put on some events or, support some events that allow us to return support to them, that's what we want to do.
So if someone's listening, we posted the page up there for people to find it, but say there's someone I want to recognize as a hero.
We've got a link at the bottom.
Work?
Yeah, we've got a link at the bottom of our page. You can hit the link, submit the story, and then, we'll get in contact and figure out how to archive, format that story appropriately and get it archived. And then, it's under, there's a requested donation if you want us to sponsor an event. Here's a story submission there on the bottom. And then you just start filling out the information. And we've gotten great stories and they keep coming in, and, we're seeking out those ones that are really moving and that really draw people to the brand and kind of tell that story of deep community service.
So that submission process, how many are people, what percentage do you have a breakdown now? Percentage of what's veterans, heroes that are coming in, or do you guys know what demographic you're hitting right now? Is it mainly veterans right now? Are you getting the teachers? How does that look with the submissions?
I
don't
don't
be important, but
it's not. We will all the stories come in. I know somebody's got that data in the company. It's not me. But no, we get so many stories that it takes us time to get through them and do them appropriately, because we don't want to just sling something out there and be done. We want to make sure the families are good with it. We want to make sure that, we're good with it and that it's aligned with what they're trying to do, what they're trying to honor, and what we're trying to do and we're trying to honor. So, we're getting through those stories. Obviously being a new company and young company, we're trying to be as many places as we can and get as many eyes on the brand and familiarity in the states that we're in so that we can move up and out. So I don't know the data of it. Somebody does.
I got to imagine that some of these people are getting surprised though, because someone else is submitting stories. Have you had that yet, where people don't know it's coming, or is it?
No. I think everybody that we've done so far knows it's coming. I don't know if we'll get to that point where it's a surprise, because I think, back to the point of some of these are so moving that I wouldn't want to be surprised by my story. You wouldn't want to be surprised by your story.
Yeah. Well, I mean, not the initial. I'm just talking about more the initial that somebody had, started the conversation to start having with on your sets, because like a lot of people are doing stuff just, I've been fortunate enough to run into a ton of people that are doing, shit. Sure. In the community all over the place, and you and I are both doing it, and I'm not doing it for the recognition,
right?
So like we just feel like it's a normal day. It's like just a normal second Thursday in my house. You know what I mean? So that's what I mean by somebody,
Well, there's definitely
somebody submitting it, and then all of a sudden being like, "Oh my gosh!" Like you can't. I would be surprised. You know what I mean? Meaning that way, because I would not be wanting to. I want to go get out organically, and I don't know if that makes sense. Just do what I'm doing. I'm not doing it to get the recognition. If that makes sense.
No, I think the surprise, and it's good surprise, comes when they see the final result, right? So the family sees the story of their loved one, or here or not here with us anymore. If they're here with us, then they get to see it as well. A story that's, you've seen military write-ups. If the one thing the military can do well, it's a write-up, right?
Yeah.
And so,
they make it sound like it.
Yeah, you've saved the world single-handedly, right? So, I think that's the surprise, and the good surprise, when the family sees the final result, and it's usually tied around an event. When they see it, sometimes it's not, but that's kind of for me, that's been my experience with it. I haven't seen all of the stories when they've been presented, but that's been my experience of it is when the family sees it and they get to see that it's living, and that it'll be there forever. That's the surprise to it. And, when we first started doing this and trying to, muddle our way through and figure out how do we get these stories? How do we find them? Who do we do? And, I talked to a Miami SWAT officer and he said, man, this is pretty interesting, because if you don't tell the story, it's as if sooner or later it never happened. Yeah. And it was like, wow. And I didn't think of it that way, right? Until you start thinking about it. And he said, yeah, just walk Arlington. He said, you see a lot of names. He said, you don't know who they are. You don't know what they did. You don't know how they did it. You don't know how old they were. And you're like, wow, you obviously can figure out how old they were from most of the times from the headstones, but it's, you start thinking about the power of that statement, that if you don't tell the story, it never happened. And then I started thinking about it. It's like, I don't tell my story. I don't talk. You just don't. I don't want to. I'm glad you are today, though. It's and so you start thinking about it, and I don't really feel I have a story to tell, but some of these people do, and some of these stories they make you feel like you're not doing much. Yeah. So,
but yeah, I think that's. I mean, I will tell you your story is important. I'm blessed to be able to. I know you haven't done this. Some people don't know that to be able to share your story. That just recently came over to me lately. Is like you're episode 84, so we've got close to 260 hours of conversations, right? And there's a part of me like to enjoy the conversations that have all been beneficial, but it just and probably in the past like 6 or 7 months, it really hit me that we are sharing, we're putting people's story and archive out there for somebody to hear, like a grandson that's like my father was a cash, you know what I mean? His great grandsons or granddaughters may never really know him for what it is, but his story is captured. And, and I've taken a lot of that's been very important to me to be able to understand that's what we're doing. That I'm doing here is giving them some of the opportunity really to share their heart, tell their story, how they want to be shared. And that is important. I think everybody out there, it doesn't matter if you're in service either, like ask questions. If you get an older uncle or grandparent, ask them questions. Nobody loves more than when people ask you a question, they want to tell you, and there's so many great stories out there. There's people that I've set across with people and been like, holy shit, I totally understand where you're coming from, but you have a huge story. Like what you're doing right now is changing. There's not another bourbon group that's doing it. Kudos to you. You know what I mean?
This is a story I want to tell. And
exactly, 100%.
And it's
important. Yeah, and that's that's what I'm saying is a lot of those and most of those people that tell these stories you just don't realize the impact that your story can have on others. And it doesn't matter if you served or not, just, talk to those people, ask people, especially Agreed. these older folks aren't going to be around much longer. That's really,
when it's gone.
And everybody has the opportunity, man. There's a part of it that's a little bit fun about being able to share your guys' story. In today's world, you can grab your phone, you can buy pretty cheap microphones, you can do your own. Anybody can do their own podcast, right. Like what's happening. Yeah. But I think it's important sharing that story and passing those things because, I don't, other than when I'm trying to promote what we're doing, I don't really talk about a lot about what we do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Unless it's the opportunity that's not, it's important to me, but it's a great opportunity. I think that's great what you guys are doing to be able to read all those and all the different stories, they are pretty impactful. All of them, you read them. Because I did ask you earlier if there's one that stuck out, and I thought that was a great answer. You're like, they're all great. I don't want to,
I would never devalue one to say that one.
Well, it's not a devalue, it's just one that struck with you. But I get it. I mean, I love that you're the inclusiveness and you know what I mean, and making it. That doesn't matter, but the stories are unbelievable. If there is someone that you want to recommend, just get on there and how long does it take normally for the process to go through if someone were to submit it? And
it depends on how many there are at the moment, right? And we only have so many people that can that format them and get them out there. So if it's for an event, in some cases for an event, we can turn a story pretty quick. But if it's somebody that just wants to archive their story and tell the story and get it out there, I don't know how long that takes, but a lot of submissions come in, and so we do triage them around the events that are coming up because that's what's going to get the word out.
I know, 100%. Yeah, no, it is. Just they'll get to you. That's the answer. You'll get to you.
They'll get to them. Yeah, we'll get to them. We'll get to them.
Just So what you went to, you're still doing some other stuff. You and I were talking about you've got other irons in the fire, but this isn't what you're doing all the time. So when you started finishing school up and deciding that you want to do something, what drew you to this particular, what made you say, hey, I'm going to go with the Bourbon brand? What made you, and what kind of internal resistance did you have, and what kind of external resistance was out there, if there was any?
The internal. So we came to it as an opportunity to work on something else with some other guys, and then COVID kind of derailed that, and so then just sitting around, the guys came to that opportunity, kind of was like, hey, what do you think? And he said, well, we kind of been toying around with the idea of doing our own, and so, well, let's do it. And then, so the internal resistance was, I don't have the money to do that. Like, and now, especially now, knowing what it costs, but we'd been doing business consulting, procurement consulting for a while, so we knew what to. That's me. Sorry, it's football time. So it's we knew what to put a product out, or to iterate a product, or to manufacture something. We knew that's expensive, and so the internal was like, we don't have the money for that, and then the external was
it all money though? Was there anything that said, like, I mean, this isn't,
well, there's the typical,
I want to be the
there's the typical, like, well, how do you separate yourself from the 3,000 other bottles on the shelf? Or and originally, is it bourbon? Is it something else? Do we do, what is it? And then it came down to, well, how do you do that? Because we don't have any experience in the spirits business at all. And when we settled on it and kind of got, the founders and the partners and the initial core of our group there, we got cobbled money together and kind of got going on it, and then realized at a point that we were kind of spinning our wheels. We didn't know anything about spirits business. We knew nothing about liquor. And so we kind of just went through
drinking it.
Yeah, other than drinking it. And we went through our Rolodex and kind of said, hey, does, one of our partners says, hey, does anybody know this guy's in the business? And he, an attorney in the spirits business. And so we said, oh, and Dan kind of said, hey, I think we went to an event with somebody from that firm, and, one thing led to another, and through our network got in touch with him, and he ended up, hey, I'm a Navy guy, so how do I help? And he said, you guys don't know anything about the spirits business, so you really should call this guy. And that kind of led us to Gary. And once we brought in the folks that understood spirits, our aperture was like this. And so our aperture went like this, and our market went like this, because we had people that understood how to do this and how to grow. And then the resistance is kind of still there, right? The fragility of a new business is like, oh God, here today, gone tomorrow is a real thing in the business world, right? And that's something you don't have to worry about in the military. Is you're not getting fired. Like you're getting paid on the 1st and the 15th, barring a government shutdown, but you're getting paid on the 1st and the 15th, and you're not going to get fired. And if you do a crappy, shitty job, they're just going to remediate you, and you're going to have the next evaluation period to fix yourself. But in the business world, that's not the case. And so for the first handful of months, year, you're losing sleep thinking, hey, am I gonna lose my friends and family's money and sink this thing, and are we making the right decisions? And we don't really understand the spirits business, so you're trying to be everywhere, and we have a great group, right? And we have people that understand marketing, we have people that understand advertising, and then we brought in people that understood the spirits world, and so that group cobbled together really is the infrastructure behind, the good idea fairies that we have. We're like, oh, we should do this, and they're like, you shouldn't. So, there's always, kind of the what ifs at night when you put your head on the pillow and you think, did we do that right? And we're fortunate to have made good decisions, and we've got a good product and a good brand. We've got a great team. So. Yeah,
I think that's good advice. I mean, there's always the second guessing yourself, but making sure you surround yourself by the right team, getting all the information. It's there's a lot of things I still do, like all these things. You always think, like, am I doing the right thing?
Yeah.
what happened. But, as long as you're doing your due diligence, like you said, it is different when you start taking people's money. The same thing with, in the charity world, the nonprofit, like you just want to make sure you're being a good steward of it.
Yes.
There's all these kind of things you want to do better. But yeah, it's just, and I love that you brought that up, because I always tinker on myself for that, being an entrepreneur. Like I feel like I am, but then there's been a couple of times that I've like touched up against it, and I just get like a little uncomfortable. Like, I don't want to do that. And it's important. I think entrepreneurs like you that are out there, like you guys are able to bust through fly through that flutter a little bit better than I can. Cause I'm like, I can do that, but because I just draw back more to the operational stuff that I'm used to doing, that type of thing. So, but if you're out there, just a lot of the stuff is, surround yourself by the right people, trust yourself, trust others, and
trust the process.
Flutter, yeah.
And one of the external struggles of that is because we can survive a lot of pain and suffering. And you need other smart people to tell you, hey, there's a better way, or you don't have to, or hey, if you continue to, this isn't going to work out. And that's one of the things you're kind of callous to coming out of service. And the longer you serve, the more calloused you are to it. Is like, brute strength and ignorance is going to get me through this. And
but that's a good thing. How much of that do you think helps you, that hinders you? Because I think a lot of it, all of us that stayed in the military, you used to, it's longer we're not even talking about the community, but the longer you go in the military and you went up to being the rank it is in E9, you have responsibility. You've got to lead people. You've got to do things you don't want to do. You've got to go off, I don't want to say half cocked, but like, I think a lot of that can be a benefit as well.
Well, if you ask me, it's a benefit. If you ask my friends and family, they'd probably say, I'd like to put my hands around your throat. And it's not the best benefit, but I do think it is more of a benefit than it is a hindrance. Yeah. I think it's not a hindrance because we both have smart people around us that can say, hey, that's not the best way to go about it. And we can argue and beat our heads against the wall. And it's one of the things I love about our partnership group so much, is that you can beat your head against the wall and nobody's going to really get upset with you. And they're just going to say that, hey, this isn't the way to go. And, you've got to have a little bit of maturity and a little bit of education to say, okay, I'm not the smartest guy in the room, and
restraint.
And restraint. And for me, it's super easy because I know I'm not the smartest guy in that room. Yeah. And there's a lot smarter people in that room that are making this business what it is. And, Dan and I are both very fortunate to have a lot of those advisors, around us that are making good decisions, along with the good decisions that we're making.
Yeah, I don't see it as a hindrance unless, like you said before, where you're blind to what you're doing. And I think at times all of us do. I think you start to learn it, but I also think it's important to talk about those people that are coming out of the military. A lot of these places, you've been put up to some hard stuff, and that means something. Yeah,
absolutely.
And it's just like you said, it's surround yourself by the right people.
Yeah.
A lot of his resilience, and I've learned just lately when to shut the fuck up about it and just be like, okay, I don't have this figured out. I'm going to let somebody else.
To your point, though, it's part of the hard conversation about veteran employment that is difficult. Is there people say they love their veterans, they support their veterans, and they put them to work. And I can't tell you the number of businesses that I've come across that said, yeah, we put them at a desk and go make me money, or I'm going to fire you. And it's like, but you need to understand that veterans are built different. And it's not that they're built different, right? I grew up in the military. I went to college and I had great, young life, but I didn't really grow up as an adult until I was in the military. And you're institutionalized, and businesses don't understand that institutionalization, or maybe they understand it, but they don't know how to leverage it. They don't have time to leverage it. Same thing with the train leaving the station. Their train's moving, and they don't have time to have you walk in and go, hey, I'm not really sure what this is. They don't have time. And if they have time, they don't necessarily want to give it to you. They want instant results. Yeah. They've got to solve the problems. They've got to make money. They've got to answer to their advisors. They got to answer to their board. They got to answer to their shareholders. And, if you're not contributing to that, then you're hindering that. And I think that is where we love our veterans kind of stops, is there's only so much patience when they bring you on and hire you.
I think it's a hard one, because it does come back. Ultimately, it does come back to what you said before, the individual transition of the veteran. You got to kind of understand what you're getting into. And a lot of guys don't. Yeah, they think, and it's that stupid analogy that I used to hear all the time. Is like, they don't want leaders, they want managers, and that could be it. You know what I mean? And a lot of roles, like it's hard to especially. It's harder the further you go up in into the military organization, regardless of what community, and when you start getting rank, and you start, that rank, once you go to a different world, does not matter, right? That 26-year-old person could have been there for 5 years, could have led massive projects that made a shit ton of money. That changed the way they do things, and it's just I have it now that it's more of the veterans' responsibility to kind of understand that, because it is a different thing. But the community, you got to, if you are hiring a veteran, you have to understand. You got to understand.
You have to know what's coming through your door.
Yeah, you got to know it's a little different, and not understand those things that they're going to go into. We're different, right?
Yeah.
And because I always laugh about, I love that they always think we're all the most like by the book rule following people, and we're kind of like, bro, we're not.
We're gonna figure it out.
Yeah, follow. We'll follow the rules, but like we don't the thing I hate most is fucking meetings now. Right. Like I am not a meeting guy, because like people don't understand like a meeting before a meeting before a meeting and all this kind of stuff. Like if you're wasting my time, like I mean, like we're not having a meeting. There's no reason to sit here and just be like, hey, Mike, what do you think about it? Like I'm like, dude, I don't have the patience for. Or people will do meetings at like. At the end of the day, like 5 o'clock, like I'm like, dude, nobody wants to. You're in the military, you used to that. I'm like, dude, I didn't like it then, but then I couldn't say I don't want to do that because I had to. But now I could be like, fuck, I like it less now. Yeah, you know what I mean. So there's these things that they pigeonhole you as these different people. One of my big things was, that leadership thing. They were all like, oh, because you're an officer, I can be a leader. You're senior NCO, all you can do is lead people. I was like, I went into sales. Right. Yeah. And now I'm in technical sales. Like I never fucking thought in a million years I could do it, because when I got out, that's what, everybody would tell me if I was, hiring for a job, they'd be like, oh, you'd be a perfect manager. You don't know anything about sales.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, as I got older, I was like, and you start thinking about it, I'm like, what are they talking about? Like, even though I'm, as a company commander, I'm selling stuff. I'm selling an idea. I'm selling shit all the time. Yeah. Right. You know what I mean? If you really think about it, but that's not one of the things to do, but it goes back to what you said before, is like, you got to figure out what you can do, not what you want to do.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, I hate like the thought of being a leader now. Like when you start talking about having these large teams, I'm just like, I like worrying about myself now.
Sure.
Like it's the easiest thing. Like I can keep myself there. I don't have to worry about, I mean, those are the things you hated. Somebody getting in trouble, somebody else not coming to work. That was, that's a big thing. So that it is interesting that I think it's gotten better. I've now been in the civilian world now for 22 years now. And it's different now. I think it is, they do look at veterans a little bit different. People a little bit more passionate, a little bit more compassion for them about where they're coming from. But ultimately, once you hit that new train station and the new train, the rules are different. Yeah. You got to understand what those are, and you have to change. Yeah. You got to change.
And I think that that moniker of PTS and all those things, that the expectation when that veteran walks through the door is you're a half-cocked guy that if I say the wrong thing, he's going to lose his mind, or she's going to lose her mind. And it's just the expectations, I think, needs to be changed on both sides, and more so on the veteran side, because you're the one assimilating, right? They're not asking for you want to be there. And so I think part of that problem, and I'm sure you are as well, I'm in awe when you stop and think about what young men and women are managing on the battlefield, right? You think about these people that are, planes overhead, bombs, bullets, guns, tanks, all these things. And they're what, 25, 30-year-olds coordinating these things and making decisions that are going to end up at the White House press briefing on Monday morning. And then they get out and they're at a district level or lower. And that's a hard pill to swallow, but at the same time, you're getting out, so yeah. You want to assimilate.
I think that's what that topic has to. It's guys like us about. You got to have that tough conversation, because that's what drives a lot of these guys. I'm convinced that lack of purpose, feeling like you're not important, not feeling accepted into the world. I think that's what's leading to the veteran suicide epidemic. It's one of the things that leads to it. Like you gotta really talk about it. It sucks.
Sure.
But you can get through it. I mean, you got to think about it. Like we all started from the fucking bottom in the military. Yeah. Whether you became an E9 like you did, or you started from the bottom.
Sure.
And you worked your way up. The same thing can happen in those organizations if you assimilate. Just think about this. When yours is a little bit more specialized, but we didn't go. None of us went in knowing what the fuck we were doing.
Right.
Somebody told us what to do, and there was rules to follow within the organization, how the organization works. You learn those things.
Yeah.
You get as much training as you can when you can, and you just continue to move. It's the same way in the civilian world. It's just, you got to get over that time.
The difference in the civilian world, though, is promotion for performance is much easier, right? And that's one of the I think secret Scooby snacks that was given to me when I got out, is that take the job and then run circles around those people, because you will. Veterans will. They work harder. They understand things. They suffer more. They're willing to put up with more shit. So take the job. It's not the pay you want. It's not the position you want. But guess what? You're going to outperform, Sally. You're going to outperform Jim. And then next thing you know, you've got their job and you've done it in 2 years. But, I think it's just, you've got to do the work.
Yeah.
You just got to do that. You're you want to be there. They're not asking for you. You want to be there.
And it's interesting, I would be lying that, when, the part of, obviously the conversation is where I want it to be right now, but it's always like, I'm just in awe a little bit about how you are focused on not focusing on what you did in the military. I love it.
But it's gone. It's done. I did it.
But I honestly love it, because like we've talked about before, I listened to all that kind of stuff, and it's the same stuff over and over, that it's kind of like, okay, that's great. Like all those guys are still in contracting. They're doing all these other things with, the alphabet agencies, all that kind of, that's great. But it's still, it's like the 1% of 1% of these individual people. But there's these other stories that go into, like, it's just great to hear you having those same struggles and the same advice to doing those things. The thing about moving on and just not being identified as a veteran, that took me a little while too. I mean, I don't know if it was you. Like I was like that. I was like, do you know what do you know who I am? Do you know what I've done? It was this hard thing, but you just gotta talk to people about it. I wish I'd had, some friends that I could talk about at the time, and just be like, hey, it is what it is, man. Just take the lumps, take the jobs that you don't really want to do, because a lot of people aren't even doing them. And you're going to end up being rewarding. And I mean, and as the business goes, you got to be a little bit. I have a soft spot for veterans. All right. So my conversation, the soft spot, but also it does turn pretty quick about, like, hey man, I don't care what you did. Yeah. I had a Navy Master Chief Petty Officer that came work for me, man. He just wanted to run people out. And I'm like, bro, like, I hate to tell you this, like, if you keep this up, you're going to get fired. Yeah. And he was like, what are you talking about? You can't do this. I said, dude, I can replace you tomorrow. Mm-hmm. The guy over there that you're fucking with has been a diesel mechanic for 25 years. We cannot replace him tomorrow. Yeah. So you need to assimilate. You need to understand how to get a hold of the guy. You can't tell him what to do all the time. You got to learn. You got to adapt. Yep. And that guy did not do well with it. You know what I mean? Right. But that's the thing, is it ultimately goes back to us. But, if you're a business person out there, just, talk to the veteran you're hiring. Find out what their strengths are, find out what their weaknesses are. And we're pretty good about learning about our weaknesses are and fixing them. You know what I mean? Yeah. I would say that most veterans are open to.
Veterans will find the path faster than anybody else.
Yeah. And they're open to that feedback.
You're used to it, right?
You're used to saying, hey, by the way, Mike, you did great at this, but let's talk about what you suck at.
3 good, 3 bad. Here's how you fix it.
You're used to it. I mean, I remember one time I got an evaluation. It was like, they were talking about, and they were like, my boss was so upset about telling me this. And I was like, cool. I thank you for telling me that. I can work on that. She was like, I've been losing sleep telling you that. I was like, I can look at that and be like, yeah, I didn't handle that the right way. It's fine. Yeah. It's cool. Yeah, now I know. Thank you. Yeah. But, and that's the thing they're used to. That we're used to yearly getting told where you stand in the pack. Yeah. You're used to being graded every day. Mostly what you suck at. Yeah. Because that's, I think, unfortunately.
They don't talk about what you're good at. It's an easy conversation moving on, right?
They're like, yeah, Mike, you're good at that. But let's talk about what you're not good at, buddy.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
So I think that's important. And then as far as veterans goes, you got to have that same thing. It's like, just like you did before when you were, getting an NCOER, OER, or whatever, just take the feedback and make the adjustment.
And do on.
And because that's what I think that's what been big for me, at least, is to take that criticism and be like, man, I got to change this,
Yeah. And veterans are great hires, right? I mean, they have the intangible skills that you cannot teach people, the ability to persevere through it, find a way, the answer's no, which means really yes. And yes is I'm going to find that way to do it. And, they innovate, they think about there's a better way to do things. Yeah. I think that the businesses, when they don't know what they have, right? They don't know what they have when they have that veteran on board. And, the flip side of that is, when you've got somebody that wants to assimilate and they've done the work and they shine. I mean, they're great hires. And, I wish more industry understood and had the time and patience to really understand what's coming through their door, because most of the time they'll do the work.
Because I had a huge, I used a couple of the military placement companies when I got out. And at first I thought, these guys are they know what we do. They're great with us. But then, very quickly I realized what they were getting by getting me to the company, what I mean? And then also just curbing me towards what what they thought I would be good at as well too, based on what they need to fill. So not that those are bad organizations. I'm still working for one that helped set me up to do it, but yeah, that figure out what you can do.
And veterans are as diverse as any other group, right? It just the blanket statements, and this goes for nonprofits, it goes for business, it goes for everybody. Is you try and find that blanket fix without listening or observing what's right in front of you. And I think that, to all the struggles veterans have, that's part of the problem, right? Is you start an app, you start a wellness program, you have a band to wear, you have a program, whatever. And it's a veteran program, but we're as diverse and individuals as any other group is. I didn't come from the same background you did. I didn't have the same home life you did. I didn't grow up in the same part of the country you did. So yet to say that, you're struggling, your struggles and mine could be completely different, but it's like, here, take this pill or take this app or go through this program. And, then the program ends and where you left with, it's back to what you were in the military, right? The lights are out. Okay. You go to this program and they control your fitness and they control your these, that, and the other. And then the program's over. It's like, what do I do now? Because you just gave me all these things that make my life great for a month. But now I'm back to myself and, it's all gone. I can't afford to do all those things. I can't, again, that's part of what DOD's not good at, right? They send you these programs and, they go to these places and you go to Walter Reed or wherever you go and they control your ecosystem for a week, a month, 2 weeks, whatever it is. And then they send you back to your command or they send you home or wherever you go. And it's like, well, I can't afford all the things you just did for me for a week. And my week was great. My month was great, but now it's over. And, I just think that the diversity of it is just stop and listen. Right. Whatever that person's, what are you going through as an individual? And then use your network, your resources, your problems to listen and support their problem. You can't solve it for them. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a clinician. I'm a psychiatrist. So chances are I can't diagnose you, nor can I fix you, but maybe I can connect you to somebody that can. Yeah. And I just think that a lot of people lose that focus, that it's, you try and blanket these problems over veterans, and it's just not that case.
Yeah. And I said, like, to me, Brett, the institution, that institutionalized, 100%. But I used to spend so much time and being angry about that system. But the reality is and there's something wrong with the institution, right? The reality is you're not in the military anymore. The train's got to keep moving.
That's it.
The thing's got to keep moving. So they just do the best they can to slow the train down and push your ass out and figure it out. So I used to spend a lot of time like, they should be doing this, they should be doing that, and they honestly should be. But that's that's a very difficult thing. That's a difficult chain to stop, where the people say, "Oh, it would be great if you did these things." Yeah, but right now they're not focused on Shane Miller getting out of the military. They're focused on the next thing that's going on. They're focused on getting
tomorrow
the replacement.
And you're not here tomorrow.
Exactly.
And you're not here tomorrow.
So a lot of it does, again, all this stuff I do ultimately falls back on the individual veteran and find out where they can.
I firmly believe if they were honest with veterans that are getting out, a lot might stay, right? If I told you, hey, Jay, you're getting out, your true street value, if you go to whatever you're interested in, and I want to help you find out what you're interested in, here's the entry level pay for those. And entry level might not be ground. It might be wherever you can fit in, but it's $65,000 a year. And you think you're getting out and making 100. And if that's not the case, because I give you hey, we went to these companies that you're looking at, we went and talked to this is it. This is what you're worth. Then you may stay. Because if it's not what I thought it was, I know what I have now. So maybe I will stay. And, as it is now, they're focused on tomorrow, and you won't be here tomorrow. So they just go away. And
I think also too, ultimately, when I think about it now, is I don't know if I was ever focused on the money, right?
No,
when I was in the military. So, it didn't really, I don't think anybody was you definitely weren't in the military for the money. So, so I don't know if you're saying that you're going to, the reality might help, but also I think it's just an interesting concept. I'm open to all the ideas of how you keep people. I think also the thing about the military is that sometimes it's just you just want to get the fuck off the train. It's time to get off it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And
I don't know that, increasing pay is going to help. No, I mean, it's not. I think, it's such a diverse community, right? That sometimes it's quality of life, but if you're going to be told you're stand and watch because you don't have any kids, then you're taking my time. But why is your time more important than mine just because I have kids and you don't? Like, if I want to go and hang out with my friends and go shoot guns and drink at the bar or whatever, then why am I standing and watch because I don't have kids? And how many times you hear that when you've been in active? Oh, you guys that don't have kids, you're standing and watch. It's like, okay, so maybe it's quality of life that makes them stay, or maybe if you do have family, maybe it's more pay. Maybe maybe it's better housing, and certainly in my neck of the woods, those are the issues that come up. It's
and you speak better than me on it, but just it's been a rough 20 some years for people, and the number of times you're gone and all that kind of stuff. So it's hard to keep people in, want to stay on that train. So, I don't fault anybody that's ever got out. It's just,
no, not at all.
But it's got to keep moving on. And like,
I don't personally think that
I know you don't.
DOD wants people to stay in 20 years. They want some to stay in because they need that experience, that longevity, that continuity, but they don't want everybody to stay for 20.
No,
they want that 4-year guy. They want that 10-year girl. They want that, they want them to rotate because that's what makes the system go.
And I think the big thing too is like, those guys and gals that do and say earlier is fucking the GI Bill, and just taking the opportunity to use those educational benefits, man, because you can reinvent yourself really quick.
Absolutely.
And then what you'll find is, I can't tell you how many people sit across from me and they'll be like you even said it too, I just fuck around in college, but I'm sure you didn't fuck around when you got your master's degree.
No.
And it's so much better when you're not paying for it.
Right.
You know what I mean? You're like, yeah, this is great.
Absolutely.
And I'm getting paid to do it now. It's a crazy thing. So, because I've talked to some veterans that don't use that. They come back and like, oh, I can't go to college. I'm like, dude, it's paid for. Give it a shot. Like, and it goes back to what I said earlier. Like, just fucking. None of us went in there know what the fuck we were doing.
Right.
Like, you got taught how to do it. You learn how to do it. You adapt. I hear people all the time. They're like, oh, I went in and did this. All of a sudden, they're like, a nuke guy on a fucking sub. I'm like, you didn't know you were going to do that. They taught you how to do it. The same thing with school. It's just kind of take that leap of faith, I guess, is the way to put it.
Yeah.
So we talked professionally about the transition out. What was it like, retiring after 20 years? What was the transition like coming back, being home pretty much every night? I know you're not home tonight, but what was the family transition like?
Yeah, it was good. It was, it took some time to settle in with, being home all the time and most nights and it was good for me, but also unsettling because you were used to that pace. You're used to going. And so, there was a bit of antsiness on everybody's part when you were home too long. And then it's like, all right, so, but I enjoyed it, right? My struggles with it weren't, they weren't being, I didn't join because I wanted to do that. It was what I did and I was done with it. And I knew I was done with it and I didn't want to do it for another minute. And, sitting here today, there isn't a day that I wish that I still did it or was, maybe extended it another week, not one day. So none, in fact, I'm glad I got out when I did. I enjoyed every minute of it. It was the highest of highs and the lowest of lows, but I enjoyed it. And so the struggles for me were what we talked about earlier. It was just that day-to-day, like, man, what am I doing today? Like, does it matter? Is this matter today? And, and there's still days where you're just like, what am I doing today? Like, why? And, having done a certain routine for 2 decades, it's, there's still some things that you're just like, your friends and family are just like, God damn, dude.
How did your wife, though? Your wife
no longer married. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No. It was, being home all the time was like, it was a different conversation. Right. So it was, interesting. It was an interesting conversation. So, an adjustment for sure. And like I said, there was antsiness on all sides when you're home too long.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Kind of hobbies. I found a lot of hobbies when I first got out.
Yeah. Yeah. And terminal leave is another thing that I think really messes with people, right? Because you're getting paid and you don't really have to do anything, but you can't really do anything else because you can't fully transition till you're completely out. And so I think that terminal leave is, for me was the hardest part, right? And some of the best advice I'd gotten was, hey, don't do anything for as long as you can. Just take time to unwind and let it sink in. And it was about 3 weeks. I got to go to work. I got to do something. I can't just not do anything, right? And so, but again, you ride terminal leave out and you don't prepare and you're not ready to do something. And that kind of, circles back to the onus of DOD, right? Which is SkillBridge is out there now. It's utilized by less than 15% of the people. Like, why is that?
Yeah, I mean, that is an interesting question because it's all these things. Because that's the other thing people don't realize is there's all these fucking benefits in the military that people don't use them.
That's right.
It's so nuts.
Yeah.
I mean, when you think about the one I always think about to make it light is the dentist, right?
Yeah. You should not have messed up teeth if you're in the government.
You ever notice that you're always like, these guys come out of the military and like, you have free dental care. What have you been doing? You know, but no, I was making all jokes about that. That was one of the things that always upset me. But yeah, but that transition out. But I think that comes from, that onus falls on guys like you, though, like in your former role as a, Master Chief Petty Officer, say, hey, like, you guys got to be doing this. You got to be pushing these guys to it. And I don't think that's that. It is an individual thing, but I think the leaders in the organization would be like, hey, dude, you need to go. We don't care what the fuck you're doing the last month, but you need to go do this.
Yeah, right.
But we don't need you going.
Which is what I think the intent of SkillBridge, right? Is, hey, we're going to give you the opportunity, but I don't know that enough people know it's there. They heard about it, they use it, but is it really advocated by internally? Yeah. And again, I've been out of it so long, I don't know.
Yeah, but that's the stuff that I think that when you talk about the organization, where the organization can help, because that's that leadership thing. There's all these things that they put in our head that are there for soldiers. Yeah. That should be something, or airmen or whatever, or sailors. It's like, hey, this is, they should know what these are. So they should be looking at it and be like, why the fuck are we taking a guy to JRTC 2 months before he gets out? This guy should be back transitioning out. He should be going to these classes. Yeah. And I think that's what the organization could do, because ultimately that's what it needs to be pushed to. And especially to those younger service members that are getting out. I can see the guys that are retiring. Okay, I got a paycheck. I got these things, but what people don't realize, and that's one thing that I don't think the civilian population understands either. Like, sometimes you tell them, oh, I did 10 years. Oh, but you get a retirement. You're like, bro, I get nothing.
Nothing. Yeah.
I get zero. Yeah. Like, I mean, other than what I get for disability. Right. There's a misconception in that. So that's even more important. I think the organization could do that, where you're looking at and be like, yeah, we just don't need to take this guy. Like, Mike doesn't need to become with us. I'm like, Mike, you stay here.
But you don't.
You're on RED. Yeah.
But you don't, right? They assign you stupid. Well, at least when I was in, you got to sign stupid things because you're not going on a month-long trip. You're not in that troop of deployment anymore. You're not on that deployment cycle. So they know you're getting out. So you're just standing watch and doing things that, you could be doing something to prepare you to exit the military. And again, SkillBridge is out there. They could put a career counselor that really was a career counselor, not just a career military counselor. Like, hey, I'm your career counselor. Here's what's on the outside. Yeah. They could, all these nonprofits that are stood up to help guys find jobs. I mean, why don't you just hire a contractor for that command? And that's his job is go and tell you what's out there. These companies are starving for businesses or for employees.
Yeah. And I think the other crazy thing too is like, for example, you led the way for some people, right? You got out before other people did. I can count on my hand how many people have like come to me and asked me like, well, what, like, oh, this guy has done this. It's been out this long. You should talk to him before you get out of the Army. Yeah. Nobody does that. That's the thing. If you're a veteran, if you're in, fucking start using your personal network. Yes. Find out from your mother's, brother's, sister's, grandmother's, uncle who was in, who's doing something, and ask them what the hell it really looks like. Yeah. Because that's an honest to God. I've very rarely had anybody talk like on my hand in 20 some years that have got a call and said, hey, my nephew's getting out. Like, what do you think about this? And talking to him. It's because the other unfortunate thing is it's all good because a lot of guys want to just roll into law enforcement. They want to roll into, federal or state law, whatever law enforcement, firemen, all this kind of stuff. But, other than that, it's pretty similar. But outside of that, it takes a lot of us coming back for other men and being like, hey, this is what this looks like. Yeah. These are the challenges you're going to face. Take a risk and do it. Or just a pat him on the back and be like, bro, you got this. Yeah. Like, go do this. This is a good opportunity.
Unfortunately, the locker room conversation of, hey, Bill's making $250,000 a year. You're like, where? I don't know. I heard it from who? I don't know. It was in the locker room. And, they don't ask. They just kind of hear the hallway conversations, and it's half-cocked information. And, Danny and I laugh about it because it happens regularly. It's like, yeah, hey, so-and-so's doing so. Like, where'd you hear that? I don't know. And it's like, who told you that? I don't know. And I heard it in the locker room. And you're like, oh, Jesus. Yeah. So it's one of those things where the information is just, it's a telephone on a string, and it's not accurate. And nobody on either side is doing their part to prepare to leave. And as I said before, it's the only job I know that starts on a date and ends on a date, and you're in control of both. Yeah. Like, how can you not be prepared?
I thought about it when you first said that. One of my guys I work with. He's one of my competitors, but I forgot Mark when he was supposed to retire this year, but he keeps moving. They keep moving the date back, but in the military would have been done. Like, it's an agreement between him. It's just funny. Like today I was like, are you really going? He's like, yeah. And I'm like, I didn't say it to him, but I'm like, I'm super sad that you're actually leaving, but you're right. Cause like, you can pick your date, but like, I guess if they say you can stay for more money or they want you to stay or it doesn't work out, you can. But yeah, that is true. You do know when it's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not a shock. It's not a surprise. And if anybody, if Bill gets fired tomorrow, he's got to find a job by Monday morning so he can feed his family. Like, so when you tell me you can't find a job, it's like, it happens every day. People are getting jobs. You can't find the job you want. And, that kind of goes back to, what are you willing to do? What do you want to do? And I think it might've been Mike Rowe that maybe said it is, working for your passion is probably the dumbest statement ever, because I want to make beads and sell bracelets. It's like, that's not paying anybody's bills. Like, okay, find a job you can get paid to do. Like, and you need to be able to put food on the table and pay your bills. And that's not, that's not necessarily the sexy job you want, or you think you deserve, but welcome to America. You got to go get a job. Like, and it happens every day. So, when vets say they struggle to find work, I kind of you got to dig deeper, right? I mean, and some do for a lot of reasons that are out of their control, but
but I'll tell you, Mike, I think you're a straight shooter, and that's and I am now, right? So I think that's the funny thing about it is, like, a lot of that is because guys are stuck in story, and then the people are talking stuff and stuck in story. So, but nobody's being truthful with them either.
Right.
Like, that's the problem. Like, a lot of the people that are stuck in that, part of it's them, but a lot of people have not been being honest with them. Like, dude, this is not what you think it is. You know what I mean? This is not how it's going to go. And I think I owe that obligation to when I'm talking to men now to tell the truth about what's going on. Like, but you just got to be ready for it, and we are. That's the thing is, I've never, like, I always think about it. I always say, like, is there a difference? Is there a difference? But, like, it's that R word, the resiliency, that I think that all of us are, like, the more you think about it, if you think about all of our careers, doesn't matter what you did in the military, we learned to be resilient.
Yeah, absolutely.
We learn to adapt to change. We learn to do things we don't want to do, and just kind of keep extending it as it goes along. Because I'm not gonna lie, I got stuck in that thing when I don't want to do it. I don't want to do either. You know what I mean? Right. And that didn't really work out well.
No.
So,
and Dan and I talk about it regularly as well. Is we'll always take a call from a veteran. Always. Yeah. I don't care who it is, for what purpose. I'll always take the call. Conversations are free. You may not like what we tell you. Yeah. You may not like the information coming back, but if the information's not accurate, then you're going to make a decision based on bad information. And we all know, having spent our time in the military, you make decisions based on inaccurate information, bad things happen. Yeah. And I think I'm glad about Mike Rowe, because I was listening to him on Theo Vaughn a couple months ago, and he just talked about his foundation, how they are still raised. And that's another thing too, is like, the GI Bill doesn't mean you just have to go to college. That's right.
Become a electrician, all
trade
those things
schools
you were doing before. I mean, dude, those trade schools aren't free. Just get in there and do it. I mean, and before long, I've heard people talking about it right now, like, oh, I don't want to get up in the attic, bro. Just get in the fucking attic.
Yeah. You don't have to do it forever, but you got to
learn the business, learn a business, and take a business class while you're doing it, and then start your own electrician company. It is those things to just, I think a lot of it is just, it kind of ties into the next topic I want to talk about is mental health. But just talking about what's going on. And I can tell you I had zero fucking mentorship when it came to getting out, and what did that look like? Yeah. Yeah. I was people fortunate. I talked to did not really tell me. I think it was more of just tell me what I wanted to hear. Yeah. And I could have been I could have not had the ears for it either, which could be possible too. So I don't know. Yeah. So, I mean, there's some of that. I was the opposite of that. I was fortunate enough. I had, a couple pretty close friends of mine that were out pretty shortly before me, and they were the first calls I had. Right. And so, you get that information that's like, here's what you're faced with, man. And do your work. I did have that mentorship. I had, some good counsel of, hey, here's what you're going to be facing. It doesn't change the fact that, no matter how prepared you are for it, it was an interesting day, right? I didn't want to do one more minute in uniform, but that day that you actually are done, I was lost. And I don't mean lost like, oh my God, boo-hoo. I didn't want to do it. Not one more day. And I didn't want to get up tomorrow, and I didn't have any regrets about it, but you're not the same person today as you are tomorrow. That minute you retire and get out of it, whether you leave or retire or whatever the case is, there's a fundamental shift inside. And so it was, all the good advice and all the good information I had, I'm thankful for it, because
it was helpful to know what you're feeling, right? You know why you're feeling the way you're feeling, but it doesn't change the fact you got to walk through it. And so I was the opposite. I had good people that really gave me good information, and it was, some of it didn't apply, but I got it, and I had a notebook full of stuff that.
Yeah, and I that's awesome, because I think that a lot of, when I reflect saying that, I'm thinking like, did I ask for it? Like, just the advice we just gave, probably not. So
yeah, but it's a different time. There's information's everywhere now. Information's everywhere now. Like you can find a podcast about it. You can find it. You can Google it. You can ask Chat GPT to tell you, and they'll give you all the information you want. I mean, to say you don't know is.
And if you Chat GPT is one that said, "Sir, what was the line you didn't like? You moved your page. Call the service." Goddamn Chat GPT.
Yeah.
But no, that's good. So let's talk about, like, next topic I'd like to talk about is mental health. So, I've been pretty open over the times throughout the podcast that struggle with PTS. Is that something that you dealt with or dealing with now? Something you want to talk about?
Yeah, no, I don't, not in the traditional sense of it. I think, certainly I've got my quirks, and I've got my, my things that probably frustrate my friends and family. You ask them, and they'll probably be pretty quick to tell you that I'm half cocked on some things. And, I certainly know that, certain things set me off, certain things, irritate me more than they used to. And I've got a shorter attention span. I have, all those things that, probably get lumped into that. But no, I don't, again, very fortunate that some of those struggles that my friends and your friends and our teammates have had is I'm not, walking through that. And I haven't had to, kind of climb that mountain, but,
what helped you to stay where you're at? Like, to go through that, and, were you a guy that talked about stuff? Were you guys, I mean, what got you?
For me, there's been a ton of reflection on it, because, there's been a lot of lows. I think for me, having a very small, tight-knit group of people that I've been around, I never moved. I was in Virginia Beach my entire career. So I think not having, being able to reach out to the same people every day, any day I want. They're always, whether they're traveling or not, I know, they're right down the street, they're across town, they're here, they're there. It definitely helped, especially when you lost somebody, and you rally everybody together, and they're the same people, and you can, it's just a raw version of, hey, we're getting through this, and it sucks. But, for me, that's the comfort blanket, is that I probably am very fortunate that I had the same circle, and didn't have a lot of disruption to, who are my people. Like, where are they? I know where they are. I know who they are. I know who to call on for some things and others for other things. And, it's that system that was there is rock solid. Yeah. And, I had my family there. I had, my nest was complete. So
you guys talked about this stuff though, when it was bothering you, or just, looking back?
I think for me, because I was there and I had lunch and breakfast with the same people for my entire career, you don't check in the sense that it's like, hey, Che, how's it going, man? I know that you just have breakfast, and it comes up naturally. And it's like, God dang, we lost so-and-so, and this happened, and remember when, and, and that's kind of, for me, that the remember whens, and you can actually find some things to laugh about, and remember whens is kind of what the healing begins, and you move on. And like I said, some of our losses were pretty public, and they were big. So, it did help to have a good core group of people that was always the same core.
Yeah.
But yeah, so my struggles, you'd be better asking my friends, my family, my girlfriend, all those people that are going to tell you exactly.
Well, no,
very
candidly, I
what
think
my problems
you're
are.
a pretty open guy about it. I mean, I think you're answering the question. I mean, there's no wrong answer to it. I mean, there's just that I mean, it's a community that
there's a lot of questions.
It's a tight community where if you have, like, I'm just thinking about, in like my world now is, I spent so many conversations for so long talking about shit that didn't fucking matter. And then I'm just thinking about a conversation I had with one of my close friends, Joe, this morning for 40 minutes, and I love those conversations. We talked about real that shit that's going on in our life, real stuff. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
that's that's something I just blew through for such a long time because it's a tight community code. Then it's gone. I mean, you were fortunate to have everybody there. That's right.
Sure.
That's interesting. Like the guys you thought you were close to are gone. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So, and so you are reluctant to really get close to people.
Sure.
I was for the longest time. And now that I am close to those people, it is right. Exactly what you said. We can, if I really need advice on something, I can go out, but just being able to talk about it and Joe, I talk to a lot, pretty much every day. And, he's very quick to understand. I don't tell him all the time right away, but he can, like, just the way I'm talking, be like, well, what's going on? Like,
sure,
you seem a little off on something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that, that's the same way I am now because I'm connected to men. I'm listening to them. I'm involved in conversations that really matter instead of the shit I spent so much time not worried about for, that didn't matter, like what's the score of the World Series game? Like, not that I still don't do that, but it's not what those aren't the conversations that I gravitate to. But I think that having that tight group of people to talk to, because I didn't feel like I had that. I didn't feel like I had people I could talk to that were judging me or trying to fix me. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I mean, I certainly feel like I'm judged, but not in a sense that, you don't want to, I mean, weakness isn't something that somebody wants to admit to in any form. And I don't think that's, organic to the veteran community. I do. But
I mean, the reality is, we're human beings. We get sad. We're unhappy.
Absolutely.
Be able to talk about stuff. I think that's the key to, because, like for me, I sort of pretend like I had the Grinch heart, and that's why I tell people I had no heart and all that kind of stuff. And actually, it was the exact opposite. I had a lot of feelings. I just didn't know how to talk about them. I didn't know how to say that today I'm sad or I'm scared.
And that pressure is going to find a release somewhere. It's going to find its way out. So, I like I said, I'm fortunate enough. I've got a couple people that regularly I eat lunch with, I have breakfast with, I go places and talk and whatever, and awesome. They know. It either comes up organically. Hey man, I noticed you've been slipping a little here. Or things have been missing here. Or this has been going on, or what's happening. And so, it's you can't really explain it away when you've known some people 25, 30 years and you see them almost every day. So, it's kind of hard to put the veil on that, but I'm certainly probably.
Does that keep you there? Cause you said earlier that you're tied there for your kids. Is there a party that keeps you there too? That comfort that.
Probably. I mean, I really, I don't know how much when I say I'd move here, I want to move there. I don't know how much of that's real or just me, pipe dreaming that, hey, how great it would be to live in Southern Florida, or how great it would be to live in Colorado, or I don't know. I mean, I wish for a change, but at the same time, I love my life. I'm pretty comfortable and happy in my little circle, and it's dependable, it's repeatable, it's, predictable. And I think that all of that contributes to me being kind of pretty level, and I don't, I'm certainly less social, I'm not really,
what do you attribute that to?
Probably, experiences that aren't common, right? I mean, it's easy to get together with the guys that you've been with for years and 2 decades, and you've got kids that are basically the same age. You've got experiences that are kind of the same. You've been to the same places, but you go to a party, or you go to an event, or you go to somewhere, and it's like, I don't really relate to what you're saying, and it's not they're a bad person, or I'm a bad person, or I'm not being an asshole. It's just like, hey man, I just don't have anything in alignment with you. And then you find yourself drifting, and then you kind of find yourself trying to really work to pay attention. And I just think that part of it's age, and part of it's just experiences, that it's just like, I'm good. Like, I don't.
Well, I kind of watched yesterday. It was interesting. I like watching people, but you were talking to a group of guys at the table, and the only common experience they had, one was in the Navy. I think you remember we were talking about. You connected with them.
Yeah. I mean,
well, you just said you connected with them, and you had something to.
Sure. He lived in Virginia Beach.
Yeah. I know that's, but I think you also, I watched, I think I saw that last night with, that part of where you can be sociable. But I think
but you also saw me go sit at the end of the bar and just kind of just jump on my phone and just be like, hey, I'm done. I'm done with it right now.
And the reason I bring it up is I thought like the conversation I watched you have with people had impacts. Like the people behind us, I don't know if you noticed, they were listening to you talking. That was the guy that hit me up and was like, this better not be hard to find. The story, he already had when I took him up to the bottle. And I only say that because you can't connect with other people. You were connecting with tons of people there, and it's going to be important as you do the brand. I mean, because I did watch you go from that to to be out there, and then also to be like, I'm just going to go and be at the corner and be by myself. You know what I mean? So, and I'm not criticizing.
No, I learned it. I learned for me personally. I learned that and it was a graph that they showed us. I went through this that you start here, and as you move on, when you hit the ceiling, you're done. You can't. Your emotions are gone. Your social ability is gone. You get frustrated. You get confused. So I have learned when I've reached my limit and I just don't care anymore. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to do anything. I just want to be done. And I've also found that you take 5 or 10 minutes and go and reset yourself, and then you're back down within your bubble. And so, if that is a byproduct of my time, and then it's manageable. Right. And so, I think it's not hard to connect with people over this story, right? This is an easy story to tell. You're honoring other people that are doing great things in the community. It's easy to tell that story.
I think it is. Yes and no, but I think you're also taking apart what you have in it too. It is a story, but I watch it. I'm trying to give you kudos. It was pretty amazing to watch you connect really quick about it. It's like, you can have the story, but the difference is you live by the story. Like I listened to you talk about the story, what everybody wanted to hear about the normal people you didn't even mention at all. It came up really quick in the conversation. That person you were engaging them talking about, nothing that had to do with what you did in the military. It had nothing to do with you. It had to do with the brand. So I think that's hard for a lot of people to do.
Sure.
And that was and that's not easy to do either. And I just watched you do that. I thought that was like super impressive. And I wanted to sit there and listen, but I also was like, we got to give out free samples, and then I just wanted you to be able to like shine for your light to shine. So it's whatever you're doing, it's definitely working.
I enjoy it. I enjoy talking to people about things, and I learned something from everybody I talk to. But I've got my limits too, and
No, and I think that what back to that thing is like of doing the brand is like it's very easy for you to just be able to start talking about what you did. Right. Sure. And that's where it becomes inauthentic about what you're talking about. Like that's what you're doing. I don't think that's easy. I think, and you're authentic. That's the craziest thing that I'm trying to say. And this is like watching you is authentic. It was like,
I appreciate that.
And that's a huge thing. And that's why I don't think it's that easy to do what you're doing, because a lot of people's, identity, a lot of their pride, a lot of these other things are getting in the way of like what it meant. Like those people, they were all just happy about them. They weren't thinking about, what did Mike do? Oh my gosh, Mike did this, I didn't do that. And you said it before, like, I think it's been completely awesome that you don't want this to be a veteran brand. You want this to be a service brand.
It's a service brand.
And that's not what a lot of the veterans are doing. They're saying, hey, this is what I did. They tied into, some pretty significant shit that happened. There's important stuff, but there's other things beyond that. And I think,
but as we sat and talked about it, it was, you have to have a story, right? Mm-hmm. And so what is the story? And then it came down to listening to the others around the table that are like, hey, what's the easiest story to tell? And the further we get removed from our service time, that's a harder story to tell, right? Mm-hmm. It's a hard story to tell when you're 55 years old and your service was 20 years ago. That's a hard story to keep repelling and making.
52, but I'm kidding.
and me personally, I it's not just that. It's I truly do. Who cares?
No, Mike, I think you're 100% off. This is why I've loved the conversation we've had before. You're 100% authentic. But you're doing something that's not a lot of people are doing.
I know, and
you were able to like really listen and that's why I think,
and it's intentional. We believe it, but it's intentional. It is very important to us to recognize the things others are doing. Mm-hmm. I think personally, it's very healing for me. To put the attention on somebody else. It's easy to put the attention on somebody else. I think it is a very hard job to continue to beat your own chest and talk about how great you are. That's a hard job to do.
And I think the thing you talked about before is just, it's not even that. It is that too. But I think the other thing, as I was thinking, talking to you, it's just going more and more about like, oh, I'm not a veteran. I don't know a veteran. Okay, then yeah, I'm not really need to buy this, or I'm only buying this because I love. And I'm the same thing. Like I feel like compelled. I honestly feel I used to feel really compelled to buy veteran brand stuff. And
Sure.
to be honest with you, some of it is not that great.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And I'm at a point where I'm not going to buy it for this because the story is the same. The story is the same story.
Yeah.
I served in my, like this is a complete different thing where you just start to, like you said before, like, oh my gosh, I'm not here to talk about just veterans. Like, oh my God, my mom was a teacher. I know. Oh my God, I can relate to that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And we knew that going into it.
Everybody starts to just build and build, and then you're left with a gigantic community that's behind a brand that makes a lot of sense. You know what I mean?
And I hear it all the time.
Because everybody needs to have somebody on your six, if you're really honest with it, whether it's
everyone.
Whether it doesn't even matter if you're a teacher
and it's not
or whatever.
Just they need it. Everybody's had someone. Everybody's got somebody in their life that they can point to and say, that person, and more times out of 10, it's a bunch of people, right? And so that's the beauty of it, is that you have a reason to honor somebody. And there's no shortage of those people out there. And so we don't have to tell our story 1,000 times. We got to tell other people's story. And it's an ezy thing to do.
I just finally looked at the clock and I was like, these conversations do just blow through.
What are we? Oh, minute 53.
But no, I knew you would rock this. So I have one more question, and then I'll turn it over to you because you have a book of stuff. Is there anything?
No,
I'll go to you first. We'll do anything that in there that you want to talk about the brand, or anything that we missed, or.
No, I appreciate the time you spent on the brand. It's important. It's why we do it. I think it matters. That we are rooted in the fact that there's more good going on than bad, and we want to highlight the good going on. Right. I tell people all the time, walk down the street and just look around. It's not as bad as the media makes it out to be. It's not as bad as the politics make it out to be. It's not as bad. Your community is your community. Your people are your people. You don't ask them, are they left, right, center, or otherwise? You don't ask them what they do behind their closed door. You treat people with respect. You be humble. You be honest, and be a good person. And then we find those people that are just genuinely heroic in their communities, and it's fun. I mean, it's a fun brand. Yeah,
and I just want to go back to it. It isn't easy what you guys are doing at all. And it's too authentic. And a couple of times I've getting to know you, I was like, I mean, at what point is he gonna break about this whole thing? No, honestly, to go that, and it's because you're authentic about this whole thing. I mean, people aren't privy to the conversations we had before this. I mean, you had a lot of skepticism coming into this. This is an interesting one for me to navigate away from what you don't want to talk. Definitely
it's okay. You could say it. I was scared to sit down in this chair.
I don't think you were scared. I think
I wasn't scared.
I think it's. I mean,
I was nervous about it. Yeah,
I mean, sure. But I think it's an important thing to do. Is like you're. I mean, it's very easy for us to talk about those things. Like, dude, I'm not Sean Ryan. I mean, I don't like. I've heard these stories. That's not where my stomach is, and what do I hear anymore? Like I can't tell you how. Excited was to be able to shift it and talk about something different and not focus on that. But at a point I was like, man, he's gonna talk, he's gonna break. He's gonna,
no.
You know what I mean? And no, but I think that goes back to why this is so easy for you, because you are being authentic. And I just watched it last night. I mean, I've been around the bourbon community for a long time. I've seen some brands come and go and what people tie on. And this is something that I'm behind now. I'm blessed to be able to have you come down here and share the story of on your six and share your story. So
I appreciate that.
Yeah. One last question comes back to the mental health thing. It's you talked a little about what you're doing, but I asked this question to everybody. With what's going on with the epidemic of veteran suicide and first responder suicide, what do you think's not being done and does need to be done to help it?
Again, not being a doctor, not being a psychiatrist, not being anything other than my personal opinion, not knowing the people, I really feel that it's a blanket approach to a very, very specific problem, right? It's somebody raises the alarm. Hey, and you want to put them in a program. You want to give them a pill. You want to do this. Rather than just sit and listen and then find some resources to help them, because I'm not the guy that's going to solve your problem. And I have some very close friends that have gone to the door and talked on the other side of the door, because that's what needed. And, make it singular, listen, make it singular. We're all different. We all have different drivers, different family, different parts of the country, different likes, different dislikes. And I think too many nonprofits, too many programs, too many pills, too many everything are a blanket approach to a very, very specific problem. Whatever that person is struggling with, if they're to the point where it's life-threatening to them, then there's nothing you or I can do to fix them. We need to help them. We need to help them. And if that's get them a resource, if it's sit on the other door and just listen, but you've just got to help. And I don't pretend to know why. I think what's not being done is talk about it early and often. I don't think that there's always warning signs, right? I believe that there's always warning signs that people aren't looking at. And, can you go too far, right? They need the kids on the battlefield, right? They need them out there, so are you going to overlook some things to keep Shay on the battlefield? Of course you are. It's kind of like the NFL, right? That concussion protocol is there for a reason. Those objective doctors are there for a reason.
Like even just watch them violated on a live,
a live game. And again, it's not perfect. But it needs to be. There needs to be an objective observer, and I don't know what that term objective observer means because I'm not the guy that has the answers. But it's happening, and you can't deny it's happening. And there's not one. I don't believe there's a specific driver. You can't say, oh, these guys are losing purpose, or oh, these guys are, this is happening. That I think it's very specific, right? And it's probably, what we talked about before this started was, you can only say certain things to the VA, otherwise that you can't get any services. And if you put this in there and not that in there, then the government says it's not our fault, it's your fault. And so, there's a lot of playing the system that probably leads to people falling through the cracks. There's a lot of not listening because they don't want to make it my fault or your fault. I think that our healthcare system could be changed. I think that when you ask for help, it's, oh, you can have these services, not those services. And when somebody's asking for help, you should listen to what they're asking for. And the government isn't set up that way. They're not. They need you out there. They need you in the game. They need you on the train. And they can't have, hey, I need a mental health day. And the stigma with that, right? And the stigma with that.
But they might. That's the other thing too.
But they might.
They might. Yeah.
But they might.
Yeah. That might be.
But they can't afford it. And the stigma that comes with that, and knowing that guys aren't going to take it, right? Nobody's going to take a knee voluntarily. And if you do, you're done. And so, again, I don't know what objective observer means. I'm not.
I mean, I know you're not a clinician or a mental health.
It is a problem.
But here's my thing about that is like, it's a net we're throwing at everybody. Like I have it that, it's a specific problem, but I also, my experiences I've seen is it's not as specific as it may be. We are suffering a lot from the same things. We just don't talk about it to each other.
Correct.
That's the big thing is like when people come to you and tell you something, it's really honest to be like, oh shit. I'm feeling the same way that Mike is, but I'm too scared to admit it, or the same thing happened to me. And I just got to be like, you're gonna be fine, Mike, or like, what are you being such, those. So it's just, I always ask that question of everybody.
Right. But maybe you can admit it. Maybe maybe it's like, hey, here's what I'm struggling with. And you're struggling with the same thing, but you can't admit it because you've compartmentalized it and you're not willing to talk about it yet. And I don't mean not willing and like, I'm not talking about that, but you're not willing inside. You haven't processed it yourself and you've buried it, and it's going to surface eventually, but it's not today. And so you're talking to me and I don't understand what you're talking about because I don't, I'm not relating at the time. And I think that, that's part of the problem too, is that guys that men and women that reach out, are they reaching out to the right person? Right. Are they, if you don't have that experience and you don't know what to do, nobody's trained in, this, somebody calls your friend calls and he's in trouble and he's struggling, you're going to go, but you're not trained to deal with it. Yeah. So unless you're trained to deal with it, then what happens next? And I think that goes back to the conversation that needs to be more, and maybe that's part of it. Maybe they need some training. Maybe they do need to have some training. Hey, you get a call from your buddy. Here's the 5 things you should ask them. And I'm assuming a psychiatrist or psychologist or somebody could probably tell you, hey, here's the first 3 things you should do if somebody calls you.
Yeah, for me, a lot of it's just been to learn to listen, right? To be able to, like, I can, if I just listen to, a lot of it is just listening, like what's going on. Yeah. And just, again, I can say listening about what that person's going through and just getting it off is a lot of things. Is like those frustrations you have about something that's going on at home. Cause I have it at that, it's a permanent solution to a temporary problem. Right. And that's what the numbers show. Yeah. Something happened. Yeah. And I think this is the end of the world. Nobody can help me, or this is the end of the and I got to go and I don't
Yeah.
talk to anybody. I don't pretend to have all the answers, but a lot of it is listening and be able to push it. But yeah, it is. I ask this question of everybody, not just people on the podcast, but
Sure.
everybody else, because I think it's one of the things that's passionate about me. And we talked about what's become, what my purpose is like, I want that number to be 0.
Yeah.
That's not the number. We talked about the great things about veteran community. I don't want to be that we're leading the suicide race. But a lot of that falls back on us to be able to talk about how we're feeling.
Yep.
Like you said before, it's a you got to be able to talk to people. You got to be safe, and that's the thing too, is you got to be a safe person. You know what I mean? I don't think you have to be a clinician or anything like that. You just got to be a safe person. That if I do talk to you, like,
no judgment,
you're not going
no,
to tell Josh.
Yeah.
It's going to come back to me. You're not telling my wife. You're not telling your wife. Who's going to tell my wife. Who's going to tell 8 other people? Because that's what happens to a lot of people. And it's I think if a lot of people would ask that question or to think about that question and then put those things into practice, because I have it right now that the answer's not out there, because there's astronomical amounts of money they're going to an organization to try to stop, and the number's not going down.
Right.
So something's not working.
That's right. Yeah.
And I don't have it that it has to be the veteran community to solve it. It just could be, it can be solved. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
And it's just one of those, I appreciate you answering that question.
Yeah. I mean, I like everybody else, right? I wish I knew more, but I don't. I think, that struggle is real. It's happening. It shouldn't be happening. There's a shitload of money being thrown at it, like you said, that is not working. Yeah. And a lot of people are getting rich on it, and they shouldn't.
Yeah,
that's
what. Yeah, I try not to get into that, but when you do think about it, you're like, holy shit, like,
it's a business.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be. And it shouldn't be.
No, because it's real life stuff. And I just look at it. I just think it's all that questioning, because I think a lot of it put back and like, oh man, it can only be like Josh is, you met Josh. Nobody can see him, but I talk to him about pretty much anything I can in my life, and he's 0 military experience.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be him that I talk. It doesn't have to be that. It's just, we've got to all catch each other. It goes back to the same brand you had before. This whole thing is a community problem. Yeah. It's highlighted by the, veteran and first responder community, but that's somebody's father, mother, brother, sister, mom, dad. So we got to rope it in as a community too, to solve it as well. Yeah. And that's what I think that'll solve it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because we're not doing it ourselves, unfortunately.
No. And it is a very wide and complex problem, right? Yeah. And one of the things that, strikes me is I have a couple cop friends and neighbors that, if there's a traumatic incident on the street corner, right, they see it every day. They see it going to work. They see it coming home. They see it going to the grocery store, going to church, taking their kids to school. Why is that veteran suicide rate so high when those problems are overseas, right? You don't see them every day. It happened. Whatever happened. Yeah. You came home, and it's now 3,000 miles away. Why, what is different about the communities that trauma is every day for some policemen, for some firemen, for some first responders?
And I think the reality of it, brother, we could talk about this. Like we could talk about 5 hours, but it talks about one of the things you hit on, and you heard me talk about it. It talks about from 0 to 19 years old. Yeah. A lot of us that go into the military when we go into service, we've got a lot of baggage from that time. And that's the stuff that builds up. The same thing with the first responders. It's stuff that we weren't able to really process and learn and be able to healthily, to deal with healthily. Like you said before, like, we're not going to take a knee. Like, that's funny. We can shut down an aircraft and do all kinds of stuff to it, right? Because we don't want the fucking thing to fall in the sky. Yeah. But we can't give you a fucking week off because we're watching everything you're doing, and you need a fucking break. Yeah. Right. And the reality is, like, we need you.
When the reality is,
do we really need you?
Right.
Yeah, we need you. But and
that week-long break with your family.
When you do something that you don't want to do, or that we need you, and you fuck up, then what happens, man? You get the chop down on it. So it's but I think a lot of it does come down to that. They're not doing well either. Your cop friends, your neighbors, they're not doing well at all either.
No, I know.
They're just and it's one of those things too. I think they talk about the veteran suicide rate. It's not just veterans, it's first responders, it's police officers, it's freaking paramedics. They're kicking, they're kicking the ass in the numbers as well too. You know what I mean? Yeah. And all those things tie into is those traumatic experiences that happen as adults, because we don't know how to deal with it as children. You know what I mean? Sure. And people don't want to talk about that. They're like, oh, but we could talk about that for like days and days. We can. But I do want to thank you for coming on. I want to thank you for obviously you don't like to hear it, but thank you for your service. Thank you for everything you've done. Thank you for flying all the way out here. Yeah. It's thanks really for having me. To have you come out and get to know you the past couple of days, and super excited where the brand's going.
I'm too. I appreciate it.
Super excited to be affiliated with it. Hopefully this isn't the last time we see you or get to chat and
no, it won't. It won't be.
I think
we have a raffle to pull, don't we?
We do, yeah. We're gonna get to that. Yeah, you're ready. You ready to roll? So you can pull. We were at Open Grill and Tavern yesterday. Everybody got to sample. A lot of people got to sample on your 6 bourbon. All great things to say. Mike was killing it talking to him. We also ran a raffle there. We want to thank you guys for donating.
Sure.
You can see it up here. You get an autographed bottle by the one and only one of the two. I was saying the only, but one of 2 owners. He's
the 2 founders.
I don't even know. That's not. We got to work on a signature. I'm kidding, but you get a bottle, you get a hat, cool T-shirt, bag, bottle opener, and then a patch, right, or Velcro patch, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just had to make sure.
And so we had, I think, what was the total number? Okay, about $600 or so donation. So we thank you for that. That'll all go to support the pages. We talked about that before. All that'll go to the scholarships of dependents for service members who took their life. So we appreciate you.
We're happy
doing
to
that.
do it.
And as the man of the hour, you get to draw it so that people aren't mad at me when I don't draw their ticket.
They'll be mad at me.
So if you're not listening, I will call. No, you don't have to be listening or present. So I'll just call who it is. But I'll let Mike do the fact you can shuffle around if you want as well too. Do what you want to do.
It just says Kurt. There's a number on there, but it just says Kurt.
Kurt. We'll find Kurt. We don't know Kurt, which is good because a lot of times we have a friend of ours. If he enters a raffle, he fucking wins. It's like it doesn't matter if you put $100 in or 10, he wins. So I don't know who Kurt is.
Congratulations, Kurt.
So, Kurt, good job. We'll be in touch to get the bottle, a T-shirt, a hat,
bottle opener, and a patch.
Do you want to draw a second ticket? Because we got a second one up there. What do you think?
Oh, sure. I'll draw another ticket.
Let's do a second ticket. Let's do a second winner. They don't get a bottle opener though, unless I can get with.
We can get one.
Here goes a second winner. It can't be Kurt though. Is it Kurt?
No, Pat Ford.
All right, 2 people we don't know. Pat. Awesome. So we got 2 winners. We'll contact the winners via phone. We got their phone numbers. At least they wrote their name
legibly,
semi-legibly, but the phone numbers are rock solid.
Yeah.
So Pat and Kurt, if you get a call from a random number, it's me. Congratulations. Yeah. Thank you for donating that. It was a great reception.
Yeah, it was great.
Of the product. So we'll bring it to, we'll start getting to the least part of my least favorite part of the podcast is tonight we're going to honor a service member who unfortunately took his life. Tonight we're going to honor U.S. Army Master Sergeant Andy Christian Marcansano, 33 years old. Andy took his life on July 7th, 2020 in Washington, D.C. Andy was born on October 22nd, 1986 in Phoenix, Arizona. Andy graduated from St. Louis Obispo High School in 2004 and enlisted in the United States Army in 2005 as an infantryman. Upon completion of infantry 1-stage unit training, Andy was assigned to 2nd Battalion, 508th Parachute Infantry Regiment, 82nd Airborne Division at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. In 2015, Andy graduated as a Special Forces Weapons Sergeant 18 Bravo and was assigned to 2nd Battalion, 7th Special Forces Group, Airborne at Eglin Air Force Base in Florida. During his career, Andy had 3 combat deployments to Afghanistan and 1 deployment to Colombia. His awards and decorations include the Silver Star, Bronze Star, Army Commendation Medal, Good Conduct Medal, Afghanistan Campaign Medal, Global War on Terrorism, Service and Expeditionary Medals, Combat Infantry Badge, Ranger Tab, Special Forces Tab, Parachutist Badge, and Military Free Fall Parachutist Badge. Andy is survived by his wife, Erin, 3 children, Riley, Andrew, and Madeline, parents, Patrick and Catherine, sisters, Michelle, and numerous other relatives and friends. And if you or someone you know is in crisis and might be considering suicide, please contact the Veterans Crisis Line at 988 or 1-800-273-8255 and press 1, or you can text 838-255, or you can now chat online at veteranscrisisline.net/chat. So that brings us to the conclusion here. I was as tempted as I was to have another Navy SEAL quote. I didn't do it because I knew you wouldn't like it. So this is from Kalam Angie Reedy. It says, everyone has a purpose in life and a unique talent to give others. And when we blend this unique talent with service to others, we experience ecstasy and exhalation of our spirit, which is the ultimate goal of all goals. So I want to thank you, Mike, for your story tonight. your story of entrepreneurship, community. It's been pretty inspiring, and just blessed to have you on. And thank you for coming and seeing us. So
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
yeah. So this has been episode 84. Until next time, grab a drink.
Celebrate wisely.
Yeah. Honor the stories of veterans. And remember, if you sit down with the Patriot, the conversation is different. So we'll see everyone in a couple weeks. Have a great night.